All right, we're live and we are back, and I am going to be joined by a panel that I think everybody has been waiting for. This is another NFBC panel. It's gonna be wild. It's gonna be crazy. I think we've got some really, really great NFBC players, and another one who's going to be joining us here in a little bit as well. Hopefully, joining me right now is Rob Silver. Rob, welcome to the show.
Thanks. I'm doing this from rural Quebec, so if the Wi-Fi is a little bit spotty, that's why.
No worries. I appreciate you coming on and taking some time out of your day to come and talk with us. And if the Wi-Fi fails, the Wi-Fi fails. It's okay. Remind everybody where you can reach on social media and then talk about what you do.
Nobody wants to follow me on social media. I'm at Rob Silver on Twitter, but hopefully your life gives you better options than that.
And are you writing anywhere or podcasting anywhere nowadays?
I'm back podcasting with Launch Angle, so Mondays, and I've written a couple of things for RotoWire just randomly when things popped into mind.
All right. Also joining us is Dave McDonald. Dave, welcome to the show.
Hey, Justin. Thanks for having me, man.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you, in spite of the fact I've been trolling you all weekend throughout these live streams. Remind everybody where you can be reached on social media, and then plug everything you do.
Hey, man, it's what you do. It's better than getting your Mankini text, so I'll take it. You can find me at RunDMcD on Twitter. If you're watching, it's right down below. And you can find me on Rotosaurus High Stakes Heat Pod with my podcast partner, Jake Halsker, who was on with you yesterday. Great panel, by the way. If you guys didn't catch that, check it out.
It was a lot of fun, a lot of really great information that was given out, and I know that we're going to give out more great information. Matty Wood, Matty, my buddy, how you doing, brother?
I'm well. Thank you for having me, and hello to everybody that is on this panel. I'm excited to hang out with you guys for a short bit.
Remind everybody where you can reach on social media and plug everything you do.
I'm on Twitter _ Matty Wood _ and then all of my work will be found at ftnfantasy.com.
All right. Also joining us is John Fish. John, how you doing, my friend?
Doing well, Justin. Thanks for having me on.
Remind everybody where you can reach on social media and then plug anything you got going on.
On Twitter, at Fish2483, and basically you can just find me in the draft room.
That we can. We're going to find you in the draft room all the time. Looks like we lost Rob for a second there. Hopefully he's able to get the Wi-Fi figured out and rejoin us. Joining us as well is Mike the Mouth. Mike, welcome to the show.
That's the big intro after all this time, Justin. That's it.
That's the intro. That's what you get.
You took all of my writing out, I guess. That was it, right? I'm already bored with this entire panel. Although I have to say that there's at least one person on this panel that I really like, and it's not you. All right.
I figured it wasn't me. That's okay.
I'm glad we're here for mental health. Justin. It's an important subject to me. Because I've been on. I've tested the waters of insanity over my life period and everything else. But there is something called physical health, Justin, as well too. So if you can keep it under 2 packs during this podcast, it might be a good idea for yourself too. And I have to remind you that Cheetos is not one of the 4 basic food groups. Okay.
No Cheetos for me. I am chain smoking throughout this thing. I'll try to keep it at a minimum, but it's just what I do. Unfortunately, I'm gonna work on the quitting here thing once we get through draft season. Remind everybody where you can reach on social media. You're creeping up on those 1,000 followers, so I know you want to plug that and talk about anything you want to plug.
Well, yeah, you can find me right there at Godfather NFBC for entertaining fantasy baseball insights and knowledge. You didn't ask me about my writing. Where am I writing these days?
Are you writing these days?
Penthouse Forum, of course.
Oh well.
It looks like you're taking your shit seriously, Mike. It looks like you got a microphone with a little arm handle there, and you're stepping it up a notch.
You should see my virtual background that I can't put on this spot thing that I have light up there too. It's all laid up. I got my NFBC 10th anniversary jersey right here. Matty was on the virtual. He's been in drafts with me. He's on the never ending podcast. So no matter what he comes on, you can't mention a player because he'll break into a podcast immediately when you're on the show. no matter in the middle of a draft. I just asked you, hey, what do you think? And he's 10 minutes later, he's talking about Vlad Guerrero or something. At this point. And it's great, Rob Silver. It's great to see you, but we hung out in Vegas not too at the party not too long ago. I don't know what his problem is. He hasn't won a main event. He hasn't won an overall since 2016. So I don't know. What you got up your game, bud. So I lost him. And John Fish broke away long enough from his black market operation of selling White Claws to minors. So and what's with and again, you wore the ski hat for me because you heard me talk about the freaking younger generation, the ski hats, right? Indoors with the ski hats. Is it cold? You can't afford heat. What's the matter with you? Right?
No, I can't.
All right.
All right. And Dave McDonald, I got to get David a shout out because I heard today that DeGrom is now a 3rd round pick for him. So I just want to because he only hit 99. So Shohei Ohtani is now a 1st rounder because he hit 100. So that's why
I will say Dave in a group DM thread did drop if he was available in the 4th, he would be interested on DeGrom.
cool.
So there we go.
This is true. There are no lies here. Mike, did you have anything you wanted to promote?
No, man, I'm just doing my thing. NFBC.
Himself.
I've been promoting my NFBC tour. Excuse me, here for like the last couple of weeks, getting people to come out. The people have been using my money. I have a special code today for your show, Mason. I have a few $100 left in the kitty if anybody wants $100 off a main event entry this year to support a noble cause in addition to your cause. It's MTM Mason. So it's been created just for you. So if anybody puts that code in, you can get a $100 off a main event entry. Fish tried it 17 times in a row to get a free entry. Completely doesn't work that way, Fish. Okay. So it's a one-time deal for anybody who wants $100 off a main event entry. And so that's how it works. So it's MTM Mason. For those of you listening out there, take a chance to get a crack at me in one of my main events. I'd love to see you because the money just comes back to me. That's how I look at it. So that's what I'm doing.
There we go. So we are going to be talking some NFBC strategy. You guys are all very experienced and good NFBC players. And so I want to pick your brain because I want to get better myself. I want the listeners who are getting into NFBC, for the first time or early on in their, fantasy baseball days to get as much information as possible. So let's start with the first topic, and that's humility. So tell me, guys, how you stay so humble.
Well, I'm out. Thanks. Good seeing you guys.
I'm kidding. Yeah, I'm just no. Yeah,
I think you asked the wrong group.
Yeah, exactly. No,
I might be the only humble one.
Yeah.
So let's talk the first topic I want to kind of discuss. I'm going to start with Rob because Rob has won the main event overall.
Have I, Jason? I'm sorry, I'd forgotten that.
Yes, you have. So when you're playing in in an overall contest like the main event, when you're putting together your team, are you thinking about the overall, or are you thinking about winning your league and the overall comes later?
It's a cliche, I think, at this point to say it, Jason. First off, I appreciate Mike stopping talking to allow my Wi-Fi issues to resolve themselves. Him playing Bobby Orr for 20 minutes and just wasting time was helpful.
Canadian hockey reference lost on the American fantasy baseball player.
Yeah.
So,
Back from the mic a little bit, Mike. There you go.
It's a cliche, I think, at this point, Justin, but you can't win the overall if you don't win your league. And if you're only focused on winning the overall, you're going to draft a ridiculous team. A lot of people see the overall competitions in the NFBC as the equivalent of a GPP in DFS. And while you want some variance, it's not a GPP. It's not a one-day tournament. It's a 6-month tournament. We all know that. So nothing I'm saying is particularly profound. But what I think it means is if you're taking crazy risks with your main event team, thinking, well, I need these guys to do things that nobody sees happening. It could happen, but I think if you look back at all the main event winners, that's not really how they worked out. You need guys to overperform their draft slot, but frankly, you need guys to overperform their draft slot if you're going to win your home league. If an auction talk, if you spend $260 and you get $260 of value back, you're going to finish 6th or 7th in your league. But that's different from saying, and I use him only because he's the easiest example to use this year, I need Adalberto Mondesi to win the overall, and I'm going for the overall this year. And because he could be the top player overall, and even those of us who aren't huge on Mondesi this year acknowledge that's a possibility. I think if you go into it with that mindset, I need those, wild cards who could break out. It could work out for you, but there's a much better chance you're gonna struggle in your league. That's just my opinion.
And I think you're completely right. I mean, this is what I fell for in my first main event that people, including myself and other people in the industry, have talked about for since I drafted that team. Is I thought I needed upside at every, risk reward at every pick, upside at every pick, and none of it came together. And even if some of it had come together, not enough of it could have for me to actually compete it in the overall, much less my league. Mike, what is your thought on this? Are you a person that you care mostly about winning your league and you worry about the overall later, or are you taking more risk?
Well, I hate to agree with Rob, but I will in this time. But anyway, no, you made some good points. Look, I always want a solid floor, high ceiling. You're going to go. You have to draft for the guys that you're going to catch, the guys that you think you're going to break out, right? You have to have some of those in there. So you have to take some risks. You can't just draft the same team, every team out. So you try different things. I draft multiple main events. I don't know how many Rob does. Usually each year, I try to do like 4 to 5 main events a year. Usually 4. It's about my average over the last few years. And every one of them I go into with the mindset that there's an overall prize here. And if the worst case scenario, you shoot low, you shoot high, and you finish with a league title, or in the top, in the money in the league. So that's kind of how I look at it. I'm not a big guy that goes after the boom or bust guys. So you won't see a lot of Mondesi on my teams. Pretty much like I acknowledge the guy's got all the talent in the world and the skills that could be gigantic. I don't have to be the smartest person in the league. I know people would say that doesn't happen no matter what I do and what league I'm in, but I don't have to go out of my way to prove that, my genius on all these picks. At the end of the day, no one's going to care because it's, hey, look, here's the money, the proof's in the pudding, here's the title. So, so when I go into the league, it's definitely looking at, going for the overall and everything. And look, knowing your competition in the league, one of the benefits, being the social guy that I am in this whole in the industry, I got to know hundreds and hundreds of people. And look, all kidding aside, there's nothing but great people on this podcast. I mean, getting to join Fish and Maddie, and I didn't know these guys a couple of years ago, young guys and dudes, and Dave and Rob. We hung out, and these are all these great people, that are out there, and you become friends with these people, right? And you draft with them a lot, and you get to look at their strategies and who they like, and having that knowledge going in. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to know who's silver's on. I'm going to sit at a table with a guy who's won an overall, and he's a great player. I'm going to make sure that I might approach that draft differently when a certain player is coming around or wherever, and use that knowledge that's out there. That's just gamesmanship. You're crazy if you just go in there blind and say, I'm just going to sit down with these 14 other guys and I'm going to put a great team together. I'm just going to do my thing. No, there's a lot of elements in gamesmanship and game theory going on when you sit at those draft tables. Not to mention the stress. It's a whole different dynamic sitting there at a live table with a minute on the clock and everybody looking at you. You got to call out a pick. I've seen a lot of guys, top guy, fall apart in these drafts, even just sitting next to me. I like to bust balls and doing that kind of stuff. And it's like part of it. And they start just falling apart. I'm like, dude, I'm just hanging around, quiet. It's like, I got to be quiet. I can't interrupt them. I lean over, start looking at the draft sheet. They get all bent out of shape. You can't have that happen. You can't, so it's I guess a lot of fun to it, but there's a lot of gamesmanship too.
All right. John, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar to what Rob and Mike both said. I think when people look at the overall, they think that they need to chase the ceiling of every player, and it's really not. You're not going to hit that. I mean, you might hit on a couple players, but yeah, it's league first for sure, and then let the overall play its part. As far as like taking risks and taking that shot at the upside, I'm probably not doing that in the first 10 rounds. I just want a solid base for my team, and then we'll take shots later in the draft as opposed to early. Stay away from injury risk guys in the beginning parts of the draft, and then players with a low floor.
Maddie, how do you approach this? Are you a guy that is playing for the overall, or you plan to win your league and then you worry about the overall as you go through the season?
Well, of course we're playing to win the overall. That's what you're doing when you sign up, right? So that's how I approach it. But I'm a more boring player. If you look at my draft boards in the main event, I'm not going to take a lot of high volatile players. But the goal is to win the overall. And so that's what you should be targeting when putting together your roster construction. You should be trying to, succeed a level of 70th to 80th percentile in every single category. So all 10 of them. You can't be looking to punt something. You can't be looking to get cute like in a standalone league. So I do want to win the overall, but there does come a point in the calendar, if you're not in contention for that overall, then you might, or you're going to need to pivot and start to look to try to just win your league, because you do want to obviously have a positive ROI at the end of the season. So you got to be honest with yourself and know the numbers. And if things aren't going right or proper, then you might need to kick something and figure out a way to, cash in your league.
Dave, I know you're a guy that likes to, not take as many risks. You're very risk averse. You've been very outspoken about this on your podcast and on Twitter as well. And so my guess is you're kind of in line with, the most of the rest of the panel, that you're going to play for your league and you'll worry about the overall as you get there. So talk about that, but also talk about your approach to roster construction and what you do in draft to kind of make sure you're feeling like you're putting together a good roster for the season.
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of what Maddie just said, I agree with a lot of the points that everybody made here. The one thing I will say, though, is if you're playing in the main event, you're really playing that for the overall. Like, if you're looking for the best ROI, that's not the place to go, because you're only going to make that money back if you're, in like the top 10 in terms of, if you're just going for a straight league, playing a super league where you enter for 2,500 and you get 20 grand for getting first, you're like I said, you're not playing the main for ROI. You're drafting for the overall. So, like these guys were saying before, there's kind of this misconception that because it's an overall competition, you need to take these crazy risks, and it's like you see these YOLO teams, kind of like your first year, Justin. And really, it's about missing less than other people. If you hit on your first 10 picks, I mean, you're gonna have a really good team compared to everybody else. So it's really about, I don't take risks early in the draft. I take calculated ones like later as you go. But I don't do it like in my first 3 picks. I'll take the lesser skilled player as opposed to the higher skilled player if there's a big difference in their risk. So, like Maddie was saying too, you gotta be balanced. You can't take zeros in any category, because there's like 450 teams. If you punt a category, you're getting a 0, and someone else has a 300 who's towards the top. So you really have to make sure that you're getting at least somewhat something in every single category here. I heard I think Rob talking about GPPs. It is kind of like that, where you think you need to take these crazy picks to win GPPs, but the good GPP players will tell you you're not making these crazy picks. You're just trying to take other good picks that are just like lesser owned guys. It's very similar to this. So when I'm looking for how to construct my roster, I'm looking for what resources can I get later in the draft, and then if I get power later, then I want to make sure I get my teams early. If I can't get those ratios for my starting pitching late in the draft, I need to make sure I get them early. So I'm building my roster based on what I can get later, and then I keep the other things earlier in the draft.
All right. And, I agree with Rob too. Like, when I had, one of the things I wish I had done going into my first main event that I now do after, every season, is I go look at all the top teams. They're all there on NFBC. You can see who, teams drafted, what their final rosters were. And when you look at those teams, they're a lot more boring than I think most people would think. They got that consistent production, or overproduction at every spot. But it's a lot of guys that maybe are bounce backs, guys that are just undervalued in the market, as opposed to these crazy picks, like when I took Garrett Hampson and I, took, I took an injured C-Mart and injured Severino. Like these were poor parts of my process in that main event, and something that I've definitely tried to correct moving forward. Maddie, talk about the way you approach roster construction, because everybody approaches it a little bit different, but I think that it's a really valuable tool when you're going to draft to have a good idea of what you want to do with that.
Yeah, so once you get your KDS is set and you know where you're drafting, let's say we're talking about a main event still. I like to try and hypothetically map out what's going to happen in the first few rounds so I can get an assessment of what I need to build my early foundation. But I'm not one to take these, like Rob said, these GPP risks, as a one-day tournament. So there's guys that I'm looking to avoid in the early rounds just because of the volatility that they provide. So somebody like Luis Robert, or even a guy like Ozzy Albies, where I don't think that he's, pushing the needle in any one category for you. So there's specific guys, health risk guys in the starting pitching market that I'm going to look to avoid. And I'm not going to pressure myself, even if they fall a little bit, to just tell myself around later, okay, you can take these guys now because they've gone 10 picks past their ADP or whatever. Sometimes when that does happen in a high stakes league, it's happening for a reason, and you're going to end up, you're the fish or whatever you want to call it. No pun intended, John. But I just think that
it's a good analogy. It's a good analogy.
Yeah, taking those those high risks early. Dave touched on that as well. Is just it usually doesn't end very well, and then investing in relievers in the third, fourth round, which you're going to see here come shortly. That usually doesn't end well either. And when you're investing that high amount of draft capital, it can hurt you if things don't pan out well. So there's just a couple of landmines that I look to avoid early on, and always try and stick to 70th, 80th percentile. And, you got to stack the box in every category.
Yeah, John, I mean, when I see you in a draft, I start shaking a little bit because I know how good of a player you are. So the fish analogy does not work in this context. But talk about a little bit of what you do in terms of your roster construction, your draft strategy.
Yeah, so I messaged Dave right away. I was like, well, we're going to basically say the same thing because we draft so incredibly similar. I want aces and I want bases early. I want stolen base, a lot of stolen bases. I want a high batting average floor, and I want aces. When you progress through a draft, you'll see in the middle rounds to the end of the rounds, there's plenty of options for power. The options for batting average are terrible. The options for stolen bases are terrible, other than being one category, possibly two category players. And I just don't want to mess around with that. I've made that mistake plenty of times. So guys like Malik Smith, no, not anymore. I was on that train a couple years ago and not anymore. So
yeah, I fell for that one too. I'm sure he was on that main event squad that we've been referencing.
That's how Rob Silver won. That's how Rob Silver won, drafting Ben Revere. That's probably how it worked out when he did it.
One other thing, real quick. If you're going to do like multiple main events, like Mike mentioned, he does 4 to 5 a year. Even if you have 3, let's just say 3 main events. I learned the hard way of learning how to hedge some early draft picks. So in 2017, Rob and I actually were in a main event league together, and we had drinks prior to one of our drafts. And I ended up leaving Las Vegas. I think it was 1 auction, 2 main events, and something else. And every team had Chris Bryant, and that was a shitty year, to put it lightly, for him. And it didn't bode well for me either. So you tread with some caution when, over investing in somebody and having too much exposure in some of these high stakes drafts.
Kind of going back to what Maddie said about 70th, 80th percentile as well. When you take a stolen base only guy, they drag down so much of your other categories that it's really tough to get to the 70th, 80th percentile. So if you can get your stolen bases with players that do other things, especially power, average, I mean, that's the way I go.
And then you also run into the issue if that stolen base asset gets hurt, or like Malik Smith's case, gets sent to the minors, you got nothing, right? So then you're really behind. Yeah. Mike, what are your thoughts on this?
Oh, you just jumped on what I was. Well, usually, as usual, 50% of what was said, I agree with. I won't tell you what it was exactly. Now, I have made notes. No Lewis Robert with Matt Wood. No Ozzy Albies, now a bad pick. It's all going to go out on social media right now. Anybody missed this? Somehow that's bad. But yeah, but like you said, the injuries happen. It's part of the game. There's a luck component. Let's not forget. Sometimes you can create your own luck, right? And I think Branch Rickey said it best. It's a great quote. For those who know Branch Rickey is, luck is a residue of design. And it's so true. I mean, you can control a lot of your own luck. And if you're going to put a lot of these guys on your roster, if one thing goes wrong and that you all hedge it on that one category, you're stunk. That's the thing. So, I like to draft for in those first few rounds, balance across as many of those 5 categories as possible. Like I said, the aces, especially now this year, and this is no surprise because we have no idea what's going to happen with pitching this year. And I have a dread that there's going to be more injuries than ever coming off that kind of season. So more than ever, and I think it's also important that you better know, and maybe Rob is good at this. I'm not who's with the late round pitchers, because there's always a guy, the pitcher or two that bust out, right? It was like, how many was it? Blake Snell a few years ago was a 17th rounder, and it was like a Cy Young year. There's always going to be one or two of those guys, and you want to try to have some prospect, some of those shares where it's not a big risk going for these guys. And I think there's several of them this year between the teams.
We should be giving the people that analysis then.
What?
That's what we should give us one of your guys then in that range.
I don't know if I should be doing that on the show. It's just getting too close to these by-stakes events. I got two super. If you really want to see who people are on, look at the results of those 2 super DCs that are coming at the NFBC, the 2,500 super DCs. Which, Rob, I'm a little disappointed you didn't get one of those. I thought for sure your name would pop up and be in one of those super DCs.
Rob does not want to hang out with you for 50 rounds, dude.
He doesn't.
No, apparently it only takes like an hour and 15 minutes to get through the whole draft, though, as long as Mike's running it.
Exactly.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah, even though it's a 1 hour clock, we largely ignore that when we do those things. But,
you get 30 seconds until a text.
Yeah, I start losing my patience. The harassing GIFs start about 30 seconds into the picks. But that's going to be really cool because you're going to see some of the top guys in the NFBC that are in those that are going to be in the main events too. You're going to see how they're like. I bet you they're going to construct. And again, it is part of the overall. By the way, they just made it part of the overall. So you're going to see some interesting strategies, but you're going to see a lot of. You're going to get a feel for how the top guys, what they're looking at. So and like you'll see what Casey Cha and some of the other big guys are going to be doing in those drafts. So that'll be a good way to set ADP kind of going into the events here too. And Justin, just I did come up with a prize for today for those people that are on here for you in support for people that donate. Okay, whoever donates the most. What are you up to now, Justin? By the way, I have my big announcement at the end of this whole thing. What's the ticker for now for this? Because we are doing this for charity, right?
Yeah, $5,611 going to Mental Health America.
Okay, so what's the goal we're shooting for here? Over 6,000? 6,000?
Yeah, 6,000 was last year, so I think we're going to beat that. I'd love to beat Pitcher List, who they raised $10,000 last weekend. I don't know if we're going to make it there. They had more days than us. But
okay, well here's what we're going to do. Since I know how much longer we're going to go, and I don't want to get off your topic. This is what we're going to do. Since what I thought about. So first of all, anybody who donates at least $50, whatever, I'm going to give them during the course of the show. I'm going to give them an entry in one of my fast DCs next year. So I will pick up the entrance fee on that for $50 in the whole thing. And I told you, I joke around being the independently wealthy guy that I am, even though I'm not that wealthy. I am going to announce on the show that I am donating $1,000 to the prize to put you over the top, $6,000. I'm generating $1,000 to you guys. Okay, that's my donation for this. And I'm laying the gauntlet down. I have an ulterior motive in this because Ian Khan is on at 145, the big Hollywood hotshot. Okay, so when he comes on at 145, you can say, "Hey, Ian, I know you guys are good buds, right, Justin?"
We're very good buds.
I expect you to be in the movie as well. There's going to be a walk-on for you in that movie.
You don't want me acting.
No. You have the perfect look for some people in this world. You'd be perfect for this whole thing, right? So, so later I say, hey, you can let Mike the Mouth do only 1,000. You're not going to match that 1,000. That's how you have to have it. Now you turn my 1,000 into 2,000 right there. Now you're at 7,000 and change right there. So let's see how that goes. All right. So I just want to let you know that's what I'm doing for you guys. That's why I was saving the big announcement for today. And like I said, all kidding aside, man, I'll never draft the GGFBI because it's against my principles. But I will support a good cause, man. And you do great work with all this kind of stuff. So you guys deserve it, man. It's a lot. Trust me, I know how much work goes into this to organize it. I do a lot of organizing of the crap behind the scenes, and I get nothing out of it. You're doing it for a good cause, man. I think that's awesome stuff, man. Keep up the great work, and I encourage anybody watching this, man. If you're liking this kind of stuff, entertaining, just donate. Believe me, it'll go a long way to help others. And
real quick, Mike, love you. You're awesome. I know you from in person in Vegas. You're a big fucking bear, but with a huge heart. And a lot of people that think you're an asshole on Twitter, well, you would like to look like you're that. You certainly aren't in the real life perspective. So very well done for you. And if it does get north of $10,000, which what Pitcher List they raised, my colleague Brock this Monster said he will shave his head, and he's one of those guys that looks like he's been living in the woods or the wilderness for the last 3 years. So it would be very interesting to see him lose quite a bit of hair follicle.
Yeah. I'm hoping now. I feel like, thank you so much, Mike. I really, really appreciate that. That gives me hope we can shave Brock's head. Hopefully he'll let us do it on a live stream. A lot of love coming in on the chats right now for Mike the Mouth, and I'm sharing those.
People are
right
loving
now.
you, Mike. And tell them to follow you. Tell the people again, if they're listening, where to follow Mike the Mouth. Let's get him over 1,000 followers. So where can they follow you, Mike?
It's right there. It's right on what's on the screen. Usually it's at Godfather NFBC. And as I said before, it's all in good fun, guys. So, if you know I'm ripping you guys, that's it means I love you. If I'm shredding you guys and making jokes about you, it's the guys that take it too seriously that can't hack it, because it's just a game and it's fun. Then you're just missing the whole boat, man. That's what it's all about, So that's so you consider it an honor if I'm ripping the shreds out of you on social media or in person or whatever it may be. Because it's all in good fun, man.
It's Mike's love language, really.
Exactly.
Justin, are you going to shave your head too if we get over?
I mean, I can shave my head.
No. If it goes over 10,000, Justin's going to go on a health routine. He's going to lose 50 pounds and stop smoking. That's what he's going to do. All right.
I want Rob can post CrossFit videos and get Mason on board with him, and then that's what we can have going.
We're gonna do a show like a Rocky montage of me training Justin Mason. That's what it's gonna be.
I'll do it. Get me back into that army shape that I was in. God, 10 plus years ago. I love that. I need to. We'll talk after. We'll talk.
Justin, I'm all about that stuff, man.
I bet Danielle misses that too.
Yeah, Danielle definitely misses it because it's been, oh God, I said 10 years ago. It's been 15 years ago now. So, Rob, finish us out on that topic though about roster construction playing into your draft strategy.
Sure. Well, I think honestly, after what Mike did, he should be allowed to talk for the next 15 minutes and just kill the clock if he wants to.
Nothing you'd like more.
Is that how I shut up Canadians? That's how you do it? Right.
So the only thing I agree with everything that everybody said. What I'd warn people who have never played in the main event before is it's easy to fall into the trap of taking ADP, even recent ADP. So forget like looking back at from the psychos who were drafting back in November. You're smart. You're putting down the money. You're going to the main event. You're looking just at the last 2 weeks of DCs and putting together a very rigid draft strategy for March, whether you're showing up live or you're doing it online, thinking this is how my first 10 rounds are going to go. And you don't realize to what extent ADP goes out the window once you hit the main events and once you hit March for all the drafts, which doesn't mean you should show up in your drafts as a drunken sailor and start taking guys, who have been going in the ninth.
We've done that before.
We've all it doesn't usually turn out well. What it does mean, though, is so I like to, and I'm not unique in this, build a draft strategy from where I want my starting pitchers to go. The challenge is if I want, and I'm picking truly a name at random, if I want Zach Gallen, and I am absolutely convinced Zach Gallen is the guy, I'm building my starting pitching around Zach Gallen, and I see last 2 weeks Zach Gallen is going, I don't even know where Zach Gallen's going.
38.06.
And show up in Vegas or show up online for the main event, and suddenly Zach Gallen's jumped 7 picks, and suddenly every starting pitcher. If you think starting pitchers are going early right now, just wait until a month from now where they start going. And again, don't take from what I'm saying, and therefore I need to jump everybody. It's that you need to have a bit of flexibility in terms of what your strategy is, and if it's all built around one player. There's nothing wrong with that. You can have success with saying, I must get this guy, but then you better be prepared to be quite aggressive, or you may be sitting at the table or sitting at your computer crying when you realize that guy's not there anymore and my whole strategy's out the window. So if you say, I want to draft the back half of the round, and I want to take a starting pitcher at the first turn, a starting pitcher at the second turn. That's okay. I'm not saying it's a good strategy or a bad strategy. Have a few names there, and don't have them just based on ADP, recent ADP, because it will be different. They are different beasts. Only other thing I'll say, because I know we're starting to get a little bit tight for time. What makes these drafts so interesting, and this is in some ways, the most interesting year that I can remember, and I've been doing this for a while, is everybody wants aces. There'll be a few people who try to zig when everybody else zags, but everybody wants those aces. So starting pitchers getting pushed up. Everybody looks at the data and sees the exact same thing in terms of stolen bases. So it's not like this is some big eureka. My God, good stolen bases are gone in the 4th round. Everybody realizes that's the case. The rarest commodity, and people don't talk about this as much, the rarest commodity is the guys who fill up the old back of the baseball card, the guys who go 100 runs, 30 home runs, 100 RBIs, 300 batting average. They're incredibly rare. You can find power late, but they don't come with 100 runs, 100 RBIs, 300 batting average. So the Freddie Freemans, you may not like them because they don't get stolen bases early, but what they do is extraordinarily precious and rare. And if you want to have that solid floor, you need those guys. And then closers, as Maddie said, historically taking the early closers has been a bit of a fool's game. The problem is if you're waiting on closers, good luck this year. Just tell me who the guy is who's going to get you 35 saves in the 15th round. It could happen. Somebody will do it. Just good luck being the one who finds it out. So it's a game of whack-a-mole, and that's what makes it so interesting. I want 2 starting pitchers in the first 4 rounds. I want 2 of the guys who are going to steal me 20 plus bases. And I'd also like a guy who's going to hit me 30 home runs and hit 300. But by definition, I can't do all of those things. And that's why this is an interesting game, is you need to trade off some of these things. And at the end of the year, the answer will be very obvious, right or wrong. Right now, it's tricky. And you compound that with the starting pitching dilemma, which is, we can act certain that we know how these guys are going to do, that the early guys are safe, that the early guys will go 200 innings, and that differentiates them. None of us know. I think Mike was the one who said, none of us know how much of an increase, if any, and I think there will be an increase, but it's a guess, in injuries there's going to be for pitchers. How teams, even if they say today they're going to 5-man rotations, are actually going to manage their staffs. So many unknowns, and that's what makes this fun and interesting. It's a puzzle, and that's why it's a great hobby.
And Rob, I gotta ask you.
Oh, go ahead.
Real quick. Sorry, Justin. Will you be not attending Las Vegas, but will you be doing any main events or anything online?
Yes, I was not going to. I can't be in Vegas. I haven't been sadly vaccinated yet. It breaks my heart because it's a big part of my enjoyment. It's like hanging out with the guys. It's been for so long now, just a big part of my social calendar each year. But this is real life, and I'll be there next year again, 100%. But yes, I will do I'll do a couple of drafts online in case you were concerned. I appreciate your concern.
No, I just wanted. Well, we've spoken prior, and you were on the fence from even thinking about diving in at all.
And it wasn't me being a sucky baby. It really wasn't. It's not that this is very interesting to anybody but you, apparently. But it's not that. It's that I knew I wasn't going to get to go to Vegas, and it's like, do I want to gear up and put in the hours and hours of work to get ready when I'm not going to be able to fully enjoy it the way I like to? And it's like the guy who says on December 31st, I'm giving up drinking this year. I'm just going cold.
That's right.
Justin Mason.
January 15th says, I think I can manage 1 drink a week.
Justin Mason.
Then suddenly you're having one every day. And then
that's more me.
So yeah, I'm back.
Yeah, no,
good.
I don't think I'm the good comp for drinking, considering I'm going to be celebrating 16 years of sobriety next month.
Very good, man. Very good. So I love to hear, man. You got that kind of discipline. You can lose the weight and quit the smoking too, as well. If you can do that, you can do anything, man.
I know I can. It's all about desire, right? And I just got to get moving on that. But we are raising money today for Mental Health America. Mike has chipped in $1,000, which is amazing. It's put our total over 6,600, which means 6 TGFBI spots at least given away. let's get to pitcher list. We passed our goal, or we passed our original goal. Let's go after pitcher list. They raised $10,300. So 10,301 is the new mark to beat. Let's give away a prize right now. Dave, you and your partner Jake are going to give something away right now. So why don't you talk about it?
Yeah, it's one of our Rotosaurus Dino tumblers. It's double-walled, vacuum-insulated, stainless steel, and it's really nice. I should have one to show you here right now. I know John Fish has one.
Yeah, I bought one.
Well, where is it, John?
Way over in the kitchen.
Yeah, mine too. This is poor planning. Sorry, but yeah, Jake and I are happy to give this away to someone. Hopefully you get some use out of it. John told us, I have enough mugs. If you guys make a tumbler, let me know. And so we made a tumbler. I was like, all right, John, here you go, buddy.
It's Yeti quality, right? It's basically Yeti quality.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's really good.
It's awesome, man. And in spirit of the show, too, I'm also going to auction off my used Starbucks cup. It's got my saliva on it. Okay.
Yeah, we don't want my
DNA and my DNA for cloning. If anyone wants to, so I will auction off and I will sign this used Starbucks cup and send it to somebody for the highest bidder to this thing too as well. Just
there you go. Highest bidder, and right now that's Mike. So here we go. So
I guess I'll have my own cup.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to be eclipsed in the next segment because you're going to bring on Ian Con. He's going to hate me. Now I'm supposed to talk to him today after this whole thing about the movie. He's going to be like, "What the hell did you do to me? Thanks a lot." So now you really got to leverage him and say, "All right, what's the matter? Put me with the 10,000. Go for it. You got to go for it. Just I'm going to be listening. I want to hear it."
It's gonna happen. The winner of the tumbler is Matthew Weiner. Congratulations! I will hook you up with Dave and Jake, and they can get that sent out to you. And while I don't drink, maybe I should order some of those for my wife. She likes dinosaurs and she likes to drink a glass of scotch.
Everybody likes dinosaurs.
Yeah. My wife's got to have a glass of scotch here and there to deal with me and put up with what I put her through. And we're raising just a ton of money for mental health. And I really appreciate you guys, coming on and talking. So I want to give you guys a chance to kind of promote all your stuff and let people know where you can reach on social media. So Rob, please tell people where they can find you and then talk about what you do.
What do I do? My goodness. That's a big question.
That's a loaded question.
We only have 2 minutes. I'm at Rob Silver on Twitter. I'm back on the Launch Angle podcast, and I'll look forward to seeing lots of you guys in draft rooms real soon.
Brunch in 2022, Rob. Brunch in 2022.
Good seeing you, Rob.
Mm-hmm. And Rob, don't forget to use the MTM Mason. Get that $100 from Mike the Mouth.
Yeah, exactly.
I heard.
Yeah, definitely do that. And then Dave, go ahead and tell people where you can reach and what you do.
Yeah, on Twitter at RunDMcD, and then on the podcast Rotosaurus High Stakes Heat, and then in season Rotosaurus.com we'll be doing closer information, closer rankings, speculative saves guys, closer depth charts, and then we also do the 2-start guys, 2-start pitchers for the upcoming week, and then the following week, and then I'm also going to be starting a COVID list again because unfortunately this is still a thing. So. Got to keep track of all of that stuff. So I'm just trying to help people keep track of all the little things that we have to deal with this year, unfortunately. So, and then I also wrote the strategy section for the SP Streamer Draft Guide. Michael Simeone put together with Shelly Verstrate, who did prospects, and Michael Simeone, who did the starting pitching, Chris Clegg, who did the relief pitching, and then Mike Kurland, who did the hitting. So. It's really good. It's only $4.50. Check it out on spstreamer.com.
There you go. Matt, go ahead and tell people where you reach and what you do.
On Twitter at _MattyWood_ apologies for those underscores. All of my work can be found at ftnfantasy.com. It's a multi-site platform that has FTN, DFS and bets and everything in between. My projections, rankings, tiers, and my in-season weekly fab article will be available there as well. Use promo code Davis at checkout for an additional discount. I believe it's $19.99 for the entire package. And then it also comes with content from Chris Meany and John Legeza, who's better known as at MLB Moving Averages. My co-host Matt Kupferle and Brock Miller, aka Brockness Monster, also are providing content there. So all of that's combined and included in that package. So Thank you so much. I got two things real quick. When you have this panel on, we've got to have some sort of player analysis next so we can get heated, so we can disagree with each other a little bit more. And then when is Danielle going to allow you a poop and pee break? I know you can't do this for 12 hours a day.
No, I took one a few segments ago during the baseball cards one, or actually that was last segment. I'll be okay for at least a little while. Someone will take over me at some point so I can stretch my legs, but got to do what I can do.
Diaper. He's doing it right in his pants, right in his sister. He's not getting out.
Hey,
he's rocking a Roto-Wear Depends.
I'm doing what it takes to raise money, and if that
it's like any other Sunday in that sense.
Yeah, exactly. Right. There you go. So, John, we gotta move real quick. John, remind people where you reached, and then plug anything you want to plug.
@fish2483 on Twitter. That's all I got. I don't want to take any more time from MTM.
There you go, Mike. Close us out for this segment.
Well, there it is, man. Godfather NFBC, and I can be found on a podcast or a show or somewhere near you @Draft Champagne with Zach Roto @Zach Roto @Draft Champagne. I'm going to give a shout out to my boy. He's the one who got me on the show the first time. He's like home pod where I like to hang out with him and just go off. And we're going to be recording another one, so give a shout out. Check out @Draft Champagne when I'm on from time to time. But he's doing a really good job what he does out there. And I'm all over, I said, social media and having a good time. And an NFBC draft near you.
Thank you guys so much. I'm going to unceremoniously remove you. Thank you guys. Dun, 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 dun. And let's see there. And Mike is the last one to go. Thank you so much again, brother, for the donation. And I will challenge Ian to match you. So he's coming on right now, Mr. Ian Kahn. We've got Aaron. We've got Bob. We've got Jesse. And I think that's it for this panel. A fantastic panel. A panel that is definitely going to have some disagreement because I know Ian and I disagree on certain things when it comes to building dynasty leagues. And that's what we're going to talk about on this panel. I've got to start it off with Mike the Mouth last segment donated $1,000 to Podapolooza for Mental Health America and then told me in order to receive it, I had to challenge Ian Kahn to match him.
I'll tell you what, Mike will donate $2,000 now.
There you go.
He's going to take my $1,000. I'll let him know because he's reaching out to me soon after. He's reaching out to me soon after this to talk to me, asking me a favor. So what we'll do now, Mike, is I've already made my donation to Podapolooza. I'm excited to have the winner of the 15-minute Zoom call about Dynasty Baseball and their team. But Mike's going to do 2,000 now. How's that sound? Good, Mike? How's that for you, big guy? Big champ, big shot. Good for you, Mike?
It sounds great.
Look at me. I'm Mike the Mouth. I'm better than everybody. I play in leagues where there's no trades. Look at me. I'm Mike the Mouth. I'm the best fantasy player in the history of the East. Go to hell. Sorry, was that live? Did I say that on air?
Oh, all right. There we go. Ian, remind everybody where you can reach on social media and then kind of talk about what you do in the industry.
Bob, Aaron, hello. Sorry. Hey, you're not going to have 45 minutes of that. Mike and I have our own little bone to pick, so my apologies. It's not typically the way I handle myself, but since Mike's talking. And Jesse, what's up, my friend? I'm Ian Kahn. You can please follow me at Ian Kahn 4, not at Ian Kahn, because otherwise you'll not be watching fantasy baseball content. And I do the Dynasty rankings over at The Athletic, and I have a podcast on Tuesdays called Under the Radar with the great Derek Van Riper and Nando DeFino, and it's a lot of fun, so you should give us a listen. We talk a lot about Dynasty.
Award-nominated podcast. You guys were nominated like us, and Derek from your podcast ended up winning the award for a different podcast. So
it's a great show, and it was an honor, frankly, a true honor to be nominated. There's so many great podcasts out there. So
there is.
Yeah.
And when Derek was on, I did formally concede to him. So, joining us as well is Aaron. Aaron, how you doing, my friend?
Hey, doing well. Nice to talk to you.
Remind everybody where you can reach on social media and talk about what you do.
Yeah, Twitter handle is down below here at Sabertooth Tigers, and just started working over at the Dynasty Guru with Bob Osgood, Jesse's former home.
There we go. And joining us as well is Bob Osgood. Bob, welcome to the show.
Hey, Justin. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Remind everybody where you can be reached and what you do.
Yeah, so my Twitter handle is BobOsgood15. You can follow me there. As Aaron mentioned, I write the Dynasty Guru. Going to be working at Over the Monster coming up this year as well, talking Red Sox a little bit. And, just excited to be involved with this, and great donations going on, and happy to help out with the mental health. So thanks for raising awareness with that.
I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun getting to chat with so many people in the industry and doing it for a good cause, like supporting mental health in this country. Jesse, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. My Twitter handle is down there as well. Bob and Aaron, I saw what they did, and I copied them, obviously.
Go ahead and tell people though what it is, because this will be turned into podcasts later on.
Okay, my Twitter handle is at JAROCHE6. You can follow me. You can see my content at Baseball Prospectus. I'm on the 5-Tool podcast, fantasy baseball podcast as well, with Eric Cross and Jake Devereaux. And I pop in at the Dynasty Guru and give them hell occasionally.
Jesse, can I say one thing about the Dynasty Guru?
Sure. Of course.
All 4 of us got our writing start at the Dynasty Guru. Mine started in 2012. I was living in Los Angeles, and I reached out to this guy, Brett Sayre, who was writing about Dynasty Leagues. And I said, hey, and he said, yeah, actually that's great. And we got to know each other a little bit. And he said, I'm going to bring on some writers, because I'm the only writer on the site right now. So I'm going to bring in 3 new writers, and you guys are all going to start writing on the Guru together. I said, okay, who are they? He said, it'll be you, a guy named Ben Carsley, and a guy named Craig Goldstein.
Did they turn out to do anything?
They turned out pretty darn good. So,
okay.
I just wanted to tip my hat to the Dynasty Guru. Got a nice little message from Mike the Mouth saying, hysterical stuff, dude. Can't wait to talk to you later. Was listening backstage. Mike the Mouth, everybody.
He is a character, but I mean, he's a great dude as well.
Yes, he is.
Donating $1,000 for Mental Health America. That's 2,000. So what we're talking about today is kind of the beginning of what you do when you're drafting a Dynasty League team and putting together a Dynasty League team, and how you kind of go about that. Because I think often people enter Dynasty League teams not really knowing what they're doing, or they approach it in a way maybe that isn't conducive long term or short term. And then there's lots of different opinions on this. So I'm going to start with you, Ian. Talk to us about how, when you go into a dynasty draft, what your strategies are.
Well, it depends slightly on format and everything else. I did it, but I'll tell about a draft that I did last year with Brett Sayre. He and I are partners on a team in a sort of a high stakes league, actually. And we took we had the first pick, and we took Acuna 1, we took Eloy 2, and a 30, and then 31 we took Keston Hiura. And then from that spot, just prospect, all the way down for the next 40 picks. So if you name a top prospect other than Wander Franco, he's on our team. So we have Kelenic, we have Julio Rodriguez, we have Marco Luciano, we have Bobby Witt Jr., we have CJ Abrams, we have everybody. And that's how I go about it. And Brett was like, yeah, let's do it that way for sure. And what it does is, I don't play for the first year of a dynasty league typically ever. Though with the setup of buying these prospects from the draft, when everyone else is trying to win, like I want to win, I want to put my flag up. Well, okay, everyone can go put their flag up, and there can be 12 of the 15 or 13 of the 15 guys who are doing that. That leaves more prospects, young bats to draft. And so that's only way that I do with startups, and it has always had a good amount of success.
All right, Jesse, how do you approach dynasty drafts?
Yeah, I think the strategy that Ian just described is a pretty popular strategy, but it's not very common. I'm saying it's popular, but it's popular within a very small niche of the community within the industry. I know Tom Trudeau loves that strategy. Basically, you throw the first couple years, really, because it's not just year one, unless you're extremely aggressive in terms of trading, which you need to be in Dynasty anyway.
Just year one for me. Tom does a 3 year. Tom does
3 year.
Yes.
I mean, if you do that strategy, you're committed to being incredibly aggressive in trades, because you need to then immediately start trading. If you're doing it after you're trying to be competitive in year 2, you're immediately trying to then trade for pitching, because you're not going to likely be drafting much pitching in that first year. And I know that Ian, from experience, is an aggressive negotiator and trader, and he's very active. My strategy in dynasty leagues, it really depends. Like Ian said, it depends on the league size, the format, the scoring, all kinds of different things. And you might know your league mates, so it depends on what you know of what they're going to do. I like to try and target guys that are under 25, at least the first 5 rounds of a draft, and then I can be more flexible, because that way you're building your team to not only get players that are going to be able to help you win now, but also help you win for a long period of time. Hopefully, maybe even 10 years. Obviously, it's unlikely you're committing to any player for 10 years in a dynasty format, but it gives you a lot of more flexibility with younger players, because they have better trade value. Because what you'll find in a lot of dynasty leagues as well is that over time, there's only a handful of teams that are actually trading for win now assets, while everyone else is rebuilding in some stage. So I like to get guys that might not put my team in position to win immediately, but they give me a chance. At the very least, they give me success in year 2 and moving forward. It's not quite Ian's strategy, which I've seen work very well. I've seen monster teams get developed that way, and Ian just described that draft he did with Brett, and that is a potential monster team, like right now. And I think that you either do that or you do like an in-between strategy that I'm describing. I am not okay with going win now all the way. Getting like Freddie Freeman in round 1 is not my jam, because I think it sets you up to fail very quickly.
Bob, what is your strategy when you're drafting a dynasty league team?
Yeah, my approach is a lot closer to Jesse's, where and a lot of it has to do with how much you're throwing in, right? If it's a free league, I think more people are going to be willing to rebuild from the start. But if it's a hefty price that you're throwing in the entry fee, you probably don't want to rebuild for much more than a year. So I do something similar where, like Jesse said, I take players that are in their 20s in the first few rounds, and I kind of read the room and determine whether I should, if everybody's rebuilding and is drafting prospects from the start, you're going to be able to get those players in the 150 to 300 range that are in their 30s, the Starling Martes and the McCutcheons and the Scherzers, and you might see that those guys are dropping to insane value and say, okay, I have a good core in the in age 20s for the first few rounds, and then you can play for this year. And then if it goes the other way, I'm willing to go that direction too and try to play for year 2. So I don't want to throw my entry fee away for 2 or 3 years, but I'll do it for 1.
All right, Aaron, and what are your thoughts?
Pretty much in line with these guys in the start. Basically, you want to hit that peak value at a young age. So you're getting, like what Ian said, if you can start out with an Acuna or a Soto or even a Vlad, if you're able to take a corner guy, something like that, build that base and then just hit those young prospects nonstop. But I'll throw a wrinkle in it, kind of like what Bob was touching on a little bit there. When you get down past pick 200, things like that, you're just trying to acquire assets that you're looking to move and build and adjust with what your team is doing. So if I'm at getting a prospect that's outside my top 100 versus Charlie Morton, who's felt because he's maybe only playing 1 more year, I'll go ahead and grab him and that line for somebody that is competitive year 1 and turn that into better prospects than what I'd be able to draft right there.
Can I throw a thought in there just along the same lines?
Yep.
It was something Jesse said that kind of really drew my thought, right? He said that in dynasty leagues, you have 2 or 3, 4 teams that are really competing for now, and everyone else is in some sort of a rebuild. Just to argue my point just a little bit more, that's why I take the path that I take, because what happens is, of the 15 teams, let's call it a 15-team league, right? Of the 15 teams that are playing in a dynasty league, there's 12 who are going for it. In the first couple of weeks of a season, you have a couple of injuries, and you're seeing that a team is just dropping. And all of a sudden, what you need to do in a dynasty league is you need to have a point of view. You need to be going in a certain direction. I find that April 15th, April 18th is a really good time to start moving these prospects into playable pieces. So it's not even giving in the season. It's just, well, all right, you've got guys that are late 20s, early 30s, and you want Corbin Carroll, because you can start building your team around a Corbin Carroll who's going to be a young bat prospect. Because if you know what you're doing in a dynasty league, you're not going to build around young pitching. Because, if you're a young pitcher, you're either not going to make it or you're going to get Tommy John. If you're an older pitcher, you could fall off the cliff or you're going to get Tommy John. So Tommy John's coming. Yeah, Tommy John is coming. So what do you want to build on? You want to build with young bats. That is the key thing that people are going to be looking for as they begin their rebuild in April. All of a sudden, I'm trading a 20th round pick for a 3rd round pick. Corbin Carroll, we got in the 20th round because nobody else was drafting. So now I can flip that 20th round pick in April of the first season into playable players for that year and for the year further. We did this, or James Anderson and I did this in the RotoWire Dynasty Invitational. We did the exact same thing, and we came in, all prospects, and we finished season 1.5 points behind Ryan Bloomfield. So we went from a team of prospects to a team that came in 2nd place in the 20-team league, because those prospects are the most valuable things in dynasty baseball. That's why I have that argument. Just wanted to put that out there. Something that Jesse just said. I won't talk again for like 6 minutes.
and now this is my turn, because what I do is the exact opposite of what everybody else does.
And that's why.
But here we're gonna talk about this, because the RotoWire Dynasty Invitational is my main point. In that league, I drafted it like a redraft. Now let's be clear. When I'm drafting a dynasty league, I obviously prioritize youth in the same way, or not in the same way as everybody else, but it's a tiebreaker for me. I'm going to draft my best possible team for year 1. I want to win year 1. Why? I like money, and I like championships. I want to win year 1, and because the problem with dynasty leagues is they fold. They fold so often.
That's like RDI.
Just like RDI, and that's the thing. Like Ian, you just said, you guys finished second twice, I think.
3 times. Well, we finished second, third, second,
and that there's no money involved in that. It's an industry league.
But that's why I folded. That's why I folded.
Well, no, but dynasty leagues fold all the time. This happens all the time. People build these like juggernaut prospect teams, and the league, because people like me, people who draft like me, not people like me, draft these teams that are built to win 1 year, and then they have to end up rebuilding even if they win, or if they don't win, 1, 2, 3 years down the line. Teams don't want to take over those teams because they're so bad. It's filled with old players. It's filled with injured players. It's not filled with young guys. Now, I'm one of those guys. I'll totally rebuild. I love to rebuild. I think it's fun. Like Jesse said, like, you need to be an aggressive trader in dynasty. Ian is the best trader I know. And Tom Trudeau, who's mentioned, is the most active trader I know.
Understatement, I think.
Yeah. I mean, he sent me 40 trade offers in TDGX since we started this podcast. So I mean, it's just insane. He just dude loves to trade. But this is the reason why I play to win now, is because I don't know if the future's ever going to come. I understand, like, I totally respect Ian's strategy. I totally respect all your guys' strategies, because they can work if you know your league's going to stick together. But it's so hard to keep dynasty leagues together through those first 4 or 5 years. Once you get past year 4 or 5, I think it's likely you're going to stick together, right? Because you've built a community, you've really, you've built kind of a team or a team atmosphere in your league. But I've been a part of so many dynasty leagues that have just fallen apart because it's hard to get people to come in and take over bad teams. Ian, your retort.
No, Aaron and Bob. Come on.
Yeah.
Well, maybe those leagues are folding because you're the one in them that's going for you're then ending it. So maybe it's just a survivor bias for the 4 of us.
I mean, I'm one of those guys, like, I don't mind. I'm in another dynasty league I've been in for 5 or 6 years at this point, maybe even longer than that. And, I went for it early. It didn't work out. I ended up selling off those pieces, and I've been rebuilding constantly over the last few years. Took another shot a few years ago. Didn't work. Rebuilding. I'm willing to stick with it, but I know a lot of people like me.
Don't do that. Stop. That's binging. It's not the way to play the game successfully. It's not, Justin. It's not the way to play the game successfully. There's a player. I'm sorry, Bob. You go. I'll hold it. I'll remember.
Well, I was going to say, the majority of the dynasty leagues I play in were abandoned teams that I took over. And a couple of those, Jesse, you're in those leagues where, the 30 Rock and TGGX2, that they've been around for several years. They're past that hump that we know that they're going to last for a few more years. And I think that when you take over the team that someone else has abandoned, you're more willing to rebuild that team because it's not your guys. You want to go and get your guys. So I'm playing in this 30 Rock league now where I'm totally rebuilding that, selling all of the kind of, win now assets for future picks. I'm just trying to stockpile, picks in the first year player draft and prospects and try to get my guys. And then, whether it's a year or 2 years from now, make that turn. But, like I said, I think when you draft a team initially, you have your guys and you want to squeeze that extra year out of your window. When you take over a team, which not too many people want to do because it's probably not a good team if someone left it behind, you're more willing to kind of rebuild that. And, in those types of leagues, I try to make a trade every week, picking up relief pitchers and, all the other free agents to try to make just small deals, even for late picks and lower prospects that, just looking towards the future 1 year, 2 years out.
Yeah, I think that, I think Justin makes a very good point in that you cannot go into a dynasty league necessarily thinking that this league is going to last forever, even though, we're all hoping that. So, that's why I love Ian's strategy. I also think that strategy can lead to leagues folding because it has the potential to create a juggernaut team in like 5 years. And I've seen it happen. Those leagues did not fold, thankfully, but it can hit a point where there's basically just one team that is so good that it demoralizes half the league and they just they become apathetic or they quit. And, it's not necessarily the right thing to be talking about right now because, it's a fantastic strategy to utilize if you have assurances that this league is going to last a while. But that's why I like using my strategy where you're not necessarily forgoing youth. You're targeting younger players, 25 and under, especially early. And then throughout, you can always do what's called a competitive rebuild too, in that you keep your core pieces and you trade away older assets for youth as you go along. And that way your team's always competitive. I know that Eddie Almaguer loves this strategy. He's a guy who does something very similar to this in that he wants to win right away, but he also wants to build for the future. And I know that I'm pretty confident in being able to, identify and acquire young prospects that before others really catch a wind of them, right? And Eddie is as well. And if your league allows you to pick up prospects through waivers, this can be something that helps maintain teams like Justin's, where he's trying to get a lot of win now assets early, and then throughout the season identifies these young players and adds them. And, basically you should burn and churn through these prospects throughout the year, and you can then trade prospects away for more win now pieces. So, it's a perpetual rebuilding, restructuring process with your team in a dynasty league. And throughout all this, like Bob mentioned, you really do need to be actively engaging other owners because, you never know how other people value players, until you really ask them. So, reach out to people and you may be surprised and get some players at values. I know that Justin and I have made some trades that haven't worked out for me, but at the time I love them. So,
and I'm one of those people. I know Ian is as well. I know you are, Jesse, because I've played in leagues with you guys. Like, you're trying to do trades that help the person that you're trading with as well as helping yourself. And so sometimes they don't work out. Sometimes they do work out for both sides. But that's always the goal, right? Is to make sure you're helping your competitions. That way, you develop a good rapport and they want to trade with you later. I think, like I said, Ian to me is like the best trader in the game because he will call your ass on the phone and be like, "Hey, listen, how can I help you? How can you help me? Let's figure something out.
Well, the reason for that is,
Yeah,
unlike
Ian
poker,
actually called me the other day to try to make a trade. Ian called me the other day to try to make a trade, and we're not even in a league together. So
not that far off. Now that had me thinking maybe I did. The difference between Dynasty Baseball and poker is in poker, you have two people who are going after something, and one person goes away with all the money, and unless it's a split pot, which really never happens, one person goes away with all the money, and the other player loses. In a Dynasty Baseball trade, I remember there was a trade that Jesse and I made, I guess about a little over a year ago, that was clever as hell, and I don't remember the intricacies of it, but and when we go into it, but it was really a situation where both of our teams got better, and that's what we're looking to do. One question about, I get
do
what
remember
you're
that trade.
Yeah, it was
In the time, it helped us both. I think if we looked at that trade now, I know that the centerpieces on both sides, one of them was Roberto Osuna and the other was Jose Leclerc. So
right.
I think, I think in the end, we probably both lost, but we would have lost had we made a trade or not. So,
but there was a subtle question. There was a subtle thing you said, Jesse, that caught my attention, which is, the danger of playing the game too well is that it could end the league. I had a trade last night that I made that one of the league mates posted, because this is a team that I've been very fortunate, had 147 points last year to win it at a 150. It's our third victory in the last 4 years. And last night I made a trade that made us better. Okay. And one of the league mates wrote, "I give up!" underneath the trade. I give up. This is a league that's been around for 10 years. Okay, well, go. We'll get somebody else for your team that's really good. I mean, we may have a spot open in the league, but I look at it that's my job. It's Dynasty Baseball. I want to win with a dynasty, keep a league together. If the league is strong enough, it'll stay together. And then let's throw all the players in. Let's redraft everybody. We like these 15 players. Let's start it again. But it's not win once. It's win and win and win and win and win. And that's how I try to look at it, and not worrying so much. I want to play the experience of it. I want to get on those phone calls. I want to flip the Corbin Carrolls in trades and help make both teams better as we go. I think that to me is what the game is about. So I think that's what our job is.
All right, Aaron, I want to give you a chance to kind of chime in if you want on any of these subjects that we've talked about, because we haven't heard enough from you.
Yeah, so one of the big things for me in terms of keeping a league together is just being on the same page in terms of what the league is. Like if you've got a home league with your friends, like I'm in a home league, nobody else in that home league is writing for the Dynasty Guru. I mean, I'm reaching baseball players every day, 365 days a year. They're not doing that. So I pretty much dominate that league. But we just have fun. We talk trash a little bit back and forth, and that league's been together for a dozen years now with people of all sorts of levels. Everybody's active. Not everybody's competitive, though. So as long as you're on the same page with me, having a good time is what's going to keep the league together. So talking back and forth, keeping that open dialogue. And that's why Ian probably has a lot of success, because he is that. He makes those phone calls. He engages people in the league. It's a way to stay connected. It's a way to stay connected to each other and the game itself. So it's good for all competitive levels. It's just an experience. And that's part of the beauty of Dynasty, is forces you to have lifelong friends.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's one of the things that I love about Dynasty Leagues. It's why I continue to play them, even when, other ones do fold, is because they're a lot of fun. And it takes a lot of skill. It takes time, but they're really enjoyable for me. I play in a league that it's quasi-dynasty. It's a 30-team league with 100-man rosters, and with real-life contracts. So once they get brought up from like your 40-man roster, they get an actual like contract and stuff. And it is insanely deep. The league is insanely crazy. We lose people all the time, but it's been established long enough where we get more people in. But it's Dynasty is so much fun. It's how Friends of Fantasy Benefits started, through a Dynasty league. And that's how my initial site started and got me into this industry. So I love Dynasty. I'm not talking anything bad about it. I just know that Dynasty leagues sometimes fold, and that plays into my thinking. I'm not saying Ian's way is wrong either. I think Ian has shown that it can be very successful. Tom Trudeau, who does very similar things, he has a monster team in TDGX, and Brett gave me a really, really bad team, so that's going to be a very long build. But it's fun, right? It's fun to like turn things over. Before we jump into kind of the next topic, I do want to remind everybody we are raising money today for Mental Health America. Every dollar you donate, and I forgot to put the banner. See, this happens when I switch feeds. There we go. The banner's back. So you can donate justinmasonfantasy@gmail.com via PayPal or at Justin Salinger on Venmo. And every dollar you donate goes to Mental Health America, and it gets you entered in to win great raffle prizes. We're going to give away maybe my favorite prize right now, and that is from Ian. So Ian, talk about what it is.
It's okay. I don't even know how I came up with it, but I just thought we could do a 15-minute Zoom call with your Dynasty team on my Zoom link, and you share your screen and you show me where your team is at, and I'll give you my estimation of where you're at and how it could, go for it and where you can go and figure out different trade ideas. And actually it's brought other people who are asking me to do that now as a sort of, I'll give money to charity if you'll do that. So it's kind of good because it'll help people. And thank you, Justin, for doing this. And I love you. I love you.
I love you too, buddy. Anytime you gave the poker analogy earlier, and it's funny because Danielle once, my wife, Danielle once said when I was talking to you about a trade, she says, you have a different voice with Ian when you're talking a trade. And I was like, because I'm keeping a poker face on. I know how good he is at trading, and I'm not giving everything away. So, the poker analogy definitely does work here at times.
Yeah, but we got to help both teams.
And the winner is Chris Mayer. Congratulations. I will hook you up with Ian, and he can break down your Dynasty League team. And maybe if you don't have a Dynasty League team, maybe Ian could just talk you through some strategies of how to put together a really good Dynasty team.
And I just got a text message from all of our former boss, Brett Sayre, about Jazz Chisholm hitting a home run because we have him. I think we got him in the 25th round in that league. So
I just traded Jazz Chisholm for the 6th pick in the first-year player draft, I believe, is what I traded it for.
What are you going to get? What are you going to get at 6 there, bud?
Oh, it's already happened, and I'm blanking on who I got right now. I have like 7 picks in that first round, and so it's a stacked team, or it's going to be a stacked draft. So, but if I remember it, I will say it, but I can't remember off the top of my head right now. I did take Torkelson first. Was pretty stoked on that one. So, all right,
go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
Do you guys like Torkelson? Do you guys like Torkelson? Bob, do you like Torkelson? Are you? I had an argument. I have a thought that if his name was Bob Smith, he wouldn't be quite as. I think he is Spencer Torkelson. Here comes Torkelson. I
agree with you. Bob's a terrible name. I would. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Torkelson and Vaughn are that far apart. It's kind of like, whichever one drops. I'm really interested in Vaughn, especially this year. I hoping kind of the White Sox do the buyout of the arbitration years with him. And, in all formats, I'm interested in Vaughn. So I don't really have him too far behind Torkelson. Ian, one request that I did have, whether it's now or on your Zoom meeting, can you drop that Ariel Cohen impression one more time for us? Because that's my favorite thing on any podcast going on
honestly,
right now.
Brett's calling. Hold on, dude. Brett, I can't pick up right now unless he's watching the show. I can do that. I just have to pull up the script. There's a script that I've developed for the Ariel Cohen. And I think I can do it. No. I spoke to Ariel, who's a brilliant player, genius. Beat me out on anyway. Didn't talk about that, but yes, I'll try.
While you pull up that script, I got the trade that I made. I traded Jazz Chisholm. I got the 7th pick, and it was Heston Kjerstad with the 7th pick, and I also got the 21st pick, which I believe was Christian Hernandez. So
Christian Hernandez, okay,
fell all the way down 21.
Yeah, so that's that. I felt really good about that trade. I like Chisholm a lot too. So, but it was kind of a win-win deal for him. He's a little bit farther in his rebuild than I am.
If I do this, I don't know, man. I did it on Under the Radar, and I did it on the RotoWire. Thanks. I did it on the RotoWire podcast pod this week, and Ariel laughed. And he said his wife loves it. So, and I said, "Are you sure you're good with this?" And he's like, "No, it's great." All right, here we go. It's our mega auction strategy podcast. Join us with guest Derek Van Riper from The Athletic. Pitchers and catchers are upon us. You want to find your hot spot to get the most value for your auction price, because with value comes winning. Take it from me, Ariel Cohen.
There you go. Thank you.
That's great. And Ariel's a great guy. We love him.
Oh yeah, no, it's a compliment.
Genius. Ariel. The reason Ariel and I have become good friends, and I was lucky enough to win Tout Wars in 2019 in the head-to-head. I was in first place in 2020. All the way to the very last day. I was going to go back-to-back in my first 2 years. Ariel won we tied, but then he had the tiebreaker. Ariel won. Ariel is a genius, not because he beat me, but because his auction understanding of the game is remarkable. So I've been spending a lot of time listening to him teach me stuff, because I think whenever you get good at the game, and everyone should be good at the game. But once you think you're really good at the game and you have nothing left to learn, you're going to start getting worse at the game. And so I'm sitting at Ariel's knee right now, learning all I can about auction strategy to prep for AL Labor and to prep for the Tout mixed auction, which I'm prepping for. So I think Ariel is a genius, and I think he's funny as hell. And
you and I will be squaring off in that Tout.
Oh, that's right, dude. We're in it.
So this is not only were we in the same TGFBI league together, we ended up in the same auction league in Tout this year. So I'm definitely looking forward to. I've never auctioned against you. I've never drafted against you outside of Dynasty. So I'm looking forward to taking you on. We've got about 8.5 minutes left in this segment, and I want to give you guys a chance to promote all your work and tell people where you can reach on social media, so that way we don't run out of time. So Jesse, tell everybody where you can be reached and what you do.
You can see me at Twitter at JARoach6. You can follow my podcast at 5tool-pod. That's with Eric Cross and Jake Devereaux through Fantrax. And all my writing is at Baseball Prospectus.
All right. And Bob, where can you be reached, and plug all your work?
Yep. So on Twitter, I'm Bob Osgood15. Right into the Dynasty Guru. That's on my Twitter, but all of my writing is there. As I mentioned, I'm going to be working with Over the Monster, talking Red Sox starting this year. Justin, we are giving away, whether it's now or later, one of the TDG guides that has a more in-depth kind of prospect list that goes beyond what we have on our website. I know Shelly's given one of those away later as well, but it has kind of direct links to Shelly's list and Jordan and Keaton, who write at our site as well, which we usually kind of require a donation for that. And it has updates all throughout the year. So every month or so, they'll be updating those, and you have access to the Google Doc with all of that. So just wanted to throw that in there.
Definitely. We're going to be giving that away at 3:15 Eastern. So definitely stick around and donate, so that way you can be entered in. We're also giving away a BP subscription that Jesse has donated. So Jesse, talk about that real quick.
With the BP subscription, you get access to all the fantastic articles that are written that are behind our paywall at BP, and of course the Pacoda projection system and the Axe, auction value calculator. It's fantastic. The BP isn't just fantasy, it's also just real life baseball. There's a lot of fantastic writers throughout the site. There's obviously very big prospect team and contingent that are going to be giving you lots of prospect reports throughout the season, in-person looks and scouting from legit scouts. That these people that write for BP and do the scouting, they go on to big jobs within front offices, for Major League Baseball teams. So, be sure to, even if you don't get the subscription, be sure to go subscribe to BP.
Yep, and the winner of that is Steve Cozzolino. Steve, I will get you in contact with Jesse, and he will hook you up with that BP subscription. Thank you so much. And Aaron, remind everybody where you can reach and what you do.
Yeah, my Twitter handle is Sabertooth Tigers. That's SABR Tooth Tigers. But to let people know, just so I can be relatable to everybody, that I'm smart enough to know what Saber is and dumb enough to be a Detroit sports fan. So I thought that was a good moniker there. But like I mentioned before, I'm with Bob over at the Dynasty Guru. We just got out of ranking season, so you can see all that. Happy to give away those rankings to the winner of who donated. And we're going to be getting into our triple play pretty soon, which is a team-by-team breakdown of one hitter, one pitcher, and one prospect for each of the teams. So I'll be pretty heavily involved with that this year.
All right, and Ian, tell people where you can reach and what you do.
First thing, I'm following Aaron on Twitter and Bob on Twitter and Jesse, of course, on Twitter and Justin on Twitter. And thank you, guys. It was a real pleasure to hang out with you guys. Sorry, I talked a little too much there in the middle.
It's all good.
I am at IanCon4 on Twitter. But if you really want to, the podcast is fun. I mean, the Under the Radar podcast, I think we have a good time. Derek and Nando and I, it's a funny combination because Derek is like our ciabatta bread and Nando and I are sort of like the meat and the cheese and like all the toppings in the middle, but Derek kind of keeps us on track. It's like, okay, let's do the show. So it's a nice combination. It's a lot of fun and people seem to like it. So give us a listen over there at the Fantasy Baseball, the Athletic Fantasy Baseball podcast. We are the Tuesday show. So hopefully you enjoy it. Justin, thank you for doing this. And let's raise more and more money for Podapolooza. That's really cool.
Yeah, let's keep raising money. Definitely go listen to the podcast. Go back and listen to the one where Derek complains about his OOTP.
That is the best episode ever.
I mean, yeah, it was pretty hilarious. Just how riled up. Yeah, Derek got.
Do you remember, Bob? Do you remember that one?
Remember Ken Giles, right?
Ken Giles, man.
He was running his mouth through email.
Yep. And listening to Derek Van Riper being like, that was the hardest laugh I had during the whole pandemic was that moment. And when he's like, could you believe this guy? I just traded for Ken Giles and he's already emailing me talking about a contract extension. He didn't even say thank you. He didn't even say please.
It's the only time I've ever heard him fly off the handle.
So we've got just a few minutes left, and there was a question in the chat that I want to get to because one of the things that people have problems with Dynasty Leagues is finding them. So, guys, if you could just real quickly, we only have 3.5 minutes left, but tell Mark where you can find a Dynasty League, Aaron.
My longest running leagues are on CBS and AutoNew. So that's typically play most of my long running Dynasty and Keeper leagues.
You can always reach out to one of us or to other people on Twitter. The Fantasy Baseball and Dynasty Baseball community on Twitter is fantastic. Reach out to me, reach out to, Ian, Bob, reach out to all of us. Reach out to Eric Cross, who's one of the most active people on Twitter in Dynasty. And, we can try and, find you leagues. And, I think there's other places that you can find leagues that are fantastic. But Twitter, I think, is probably the prime spot.
You got a better answer than that. I'm not sure I'm going to find anybody leagues, but there's a place that I would recommend. On Facebook, if you're on Facebook, there's a group called Baseball 365, which really is a Dynasty League group run by Andrew McQuiston and Justin Hughes and Kang Do and Tim McLeod. Like Tim McLeod, the best of all the best, who I was on the phone with right before I came on here. And basically, you ask to join. You say, I heard about it through Podapolooza or Ian Kahn mentioned it because I do, and they'll let you into the group. And if you behave, you'll stay. And that's a place where you can always find. There's always, I mean, it's like a swap meet for Dynasty Leagues. I think if you reach out to us on Twitter, I mean, maybe you get a retweet about it, but if you go to Baseball 365, if you want to find a spot, you should be able to find a spot. They're always building stuff. They're always building leagues. It's a good place to be.
Yeah, and in our private chat here, Eric Cross is saying Fantrax, which is a fantastic platform for Dynasty Baseball.
Really good. It's my favorite. Yes. It's my Fantrax is my favorite. And Eric, I'm going to be on your podcast next week. Looking forward to 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Just
Bob, did you have any thoughts?
Yeah. There's a Twitter account, Dynasty One Stop, and he started quite a few leagues in the past year. Or you can just message me and I can send you in his direction. But he's starting leagues up all the time, leading up to the season. So that's one name that comes to mind.
That's a fantastic one.
And his name is Nathan. He was on yesterday's Podapolooza panel. So he's a great guy. He says he's commissioning 29 or 30 leagues. Because I said I was doing 29 for DGFBI, and I don't know how he does so many, but that's what he does. Is he helps people find leagues and puts together leagues for people. And so reach out to him. Ian is totally right. Reach out to those guys at Baseball 365. I'm a part of that group. A lot of people in the industry are part of that group. You can actually find me on Facebook and friend request me, and I can just put you in the group. I'm also part of other groups on Facebook as well. So, find me on Facebook, friend me. I'll add you to groups if you want. And then also the Friends of Fantasy Benefits Discord, the Prospects Live Discord. They both have Find League, sections in those Discords. Prospect Live guys are great as well, and definitely can help you find some leagues. So I want to thank you guys so much for joining me. It's been an absolute blast. Thank you guys for donating prizes. Thank everybody for watching, for donating money. We're going to keep it going. I think we got some more prospect guys coming on here in a second. I'm going to unceremoniously boot you all out as I do at the end of every segment. And thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. That was a lot of fun.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye. Thanks, Justin.
Thank you, buddy.
Bye, buddy.
All right. So joining us now is some more. Brought Matt in, then kicked him out. So joining us now is some of these prospect guys I was talking about. We have Mr. Matt Thompson. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. How you guys doing?
Doing well. Just got done with some dynasty discussion, and now we're going to take it up some more and talk some prospects. Remind everybody where you can reach on social media, and then plug what you do.
Prospects Live. Hopefully, you know that by now. We're trying to, we're slugging through our team list now. MB Tom FWFB on Twitter, obviously at Prospects Live for the majority of the work that I do can be found there. Got Baseball Card Podcast if you're into that. I heard they had baseball card segment on this Podapolooza earlier today, and it was very entertaining. So hopefully you check that out. But yeah, man, baseball's back. It's a beautiful thing. So
this is true. Eric, remind everybody where you can be reached on social media and plug what you do.
Hey, Justin. Hey, everybody. I'm Eric Cross04 on Twitter. All my written work at fantraxhq.com. I got 2 podcasts, the 5-2 pod with Jesse Roach and Jake Devereaux, and the Fantrax Toolshed with Chris Clegg, and also contribute to the Fantasy Baseball Black Book that Joe Pisapia puts out every year.
All right. And Chris, welcome to the show. Remind everybody where you reached and what you do.
Hey, what's up? At C_blessing on Twitter. I do a lot of things at a lot of places. Baseball HQ is my main go-to. And if you're around a ballpark in Southeast Tennessee or Northwest Georgia, you might see me prep in college coverage right now. So.
All right. And Trevor's joining us as well. Trevor, remind everybody where you can be reached and what you do.
At Huth Trevor on Twitter. I made it my name here, so that should be pretty easy. Also, I do some work with Prospects Live, helping out with those team boards, and also seems like a good time to plug our new podcast network on Pitcher List that for some reason Nick Pollock put me in charge of. So we got a bunch of new podcasts out there for you, so hopefully you can find something you like.
All right. And
hey, Ralph is running late, so just so you know.
That's okay. He'll join us when he gets here. We love Ralph. He works over there with Matt at Prospects Live. So and we value his time and his opinion. So when he gets here, he gets here. I'm not worried about it. We're going to talk about prospects, though, because I think we've talked a lot about over the weekend and all draft season, like how difficult things like how we're going to project starting pitching, how we're going to project hitters, how we're going to do this, coming off this shortened season. The most difficult aspect of the fantasy game right now may be dynasty leagues and prospects, because we didn't get to see any of them really in 2020. And so we're kind of flying a little blind. So that's kind of what we're going to discuss today. And I'm going to start with you, Chris. Having not been able to watch games and stuff like that and see these prospects develop, how do you evaluate prospects for your dynasty leagues right now?
Well, a lot of 2019 work, a lot of talking to different contacts throughout baseball. including a couple people here in this chat. Well, Ralph will be here soon, but Ralph and Matt. And also just like, talking to as many scouts as I possibly can. I cover about, 12 organizations for Baseball HQ and a minor league baseball analyst. And then, of course, I cover the top 100 and all that good stuff. But you get reports, you get different reports from different places. And for instance, there's a player in a NL West organization, won't name names, got a report from Instructs that he was like 30 pounds overweight and didn't look good at all. And that was the kind of reports that we were getting this year. So it was hard to kind of take any of it for granted. I elevated a guy like Michael Bush of the Dodgers based on looks of several scouts. But then again, they said that those looks were against lesser competition. Like he was more advanced than that competition. So it'll be very interesting seeing him go into spring training this year. So,
Eric, what are you doing? I mean, because it's got to be frustrating, someone who puts together lists, content, to kind of be flying a little blind right now. So how are you incorporating a kind of lost 2020 in terms of being able to watch guys into your stuff for 2021?
Yeah, first off, it's really frustrating. Kind of Chris mentioned, we haven't been able to see any live games for the most part. Especially me, I'm up here in a non-baseball hotbed up here in Maine. We don't get a lot outside of AA. But for me personally, I'm trying to not overreact to too much to a lot of the stuff we heard out of camps last year. Like for instance, here up in Red Sox country, Jarren Duran, his power ticked up after the swing change that he made with the hand slot. And yeah, you make adjustments there, but until I see it in game action, whether it's up at the major league level or, if he starts at AA, AAA, whatever it may be, I want to see these adjustments. Tyler Freeman's another one that was reported to have more power. I want to see these actually in games, and we can get all we can get from reports from camp or context or whatnot. And that's great. That's absolutely great. But I'm just trying not to overreact too much. And like what Chris said, go off a lot of what we saw in 2019, because a lot of these, especially a lot of the lower level prospects that aren't, weren't on the 60 man and weren't at, in the player pool at the alternate site. We didn't get a lot of them. They're mostly just working out, their home park somewhere in Indiana or Seattle area, whatever it may be. So just try not to overreact and trust what you saw prior to 2019.
And I think that's a really good point about the working out at their home and stuff. Like some prospects, they got paid a little bit when they signed. Some don't have much money. Like they're driving Uber around, right? And so it's dependent on what their financial resources when they were kind of locked down in quarantine. So Matt, how do we evaluate these guys? I know some guys are just throwing in their backyard. Some guys are, hitting. Some guys might not be doing anything. Who knows? So what are you doing?
Yeah, man. A lot of what Chris and Eric already touched on. You're doing a lot of 2019 video work. You're talking to a lot of contacts you've made throughout the industry, whether it be people sitting, again, here or elsewhere or working for teams or whatever. And we are blessed to have access to some of the data from some of the alternate sites. So we have that. But even that you really can't trust, because that you're dealing with a sample of maybe 20 balls in play, or you're dealing with some way less than that. And even for pitchers too. The alternate site was great and allowed teams to kind of curtail the development and stuff, but velocity across the board was pretty much down because it's not the game situation. The adrenaline's not flowing as it would normally typically be. You're trying to copy it as much as you can, but are you really going to buzz Mookie Betts high and tight when you're trying to get, when you're working on things? I don't think you're going to, you know what I mean? And I don't think the Dodgers want you to do that. And so you get your own hitters out and it works the same way. Pick any prospect you want. There was, we had buzz. Jared Kelenic, we had a lot of buzz at Seattle's alternate site. He's facing the same pitchers every day. That's also something that we need to take into account. Yes, obviously we all know he's going to be great and think he's going to be great. No slight on him. I'm just using him as an example. But we have to come into this, and you get a lot of information and a lot of data. You have to learn to filter what you think is good, and you don't read any pieces on MLB.com where they tell you that Jaron Duran is great or something. You need some why is he great? What's he doing that's different? You need to figure out, talk to people, watch a video, and we're going to find out a lot here in this when minor league games start back up, and a lot of rankings might flip upside down their head. I don't know about Chris. We're going to see a lot of Chris and Eric. We're going to see a lot of prospects playing games here soon. We might see complete flips on rankings pretty soon because a lot of jumps because we're getting fresh data to go along with actual results.
But again, it's short sample size, and
Right,
that's
it
not
all
what we
is.
scout off of. We don't scout off of short sample size. We don't scout off of gifts. So like that kind of thing is or batting practice. We don't scout off of that stuff. So
And watch
we need the whole kit and caboodle.
And watch the video that teams put out. Teams aren't going to put out video of their prize prospect striking out. They're going to put out prize video of their prize prospect hitting box. So you got to be leery of that. I'm not picking on Jason Dominguez, but we haven't seen any in-game video. Maybe there's a reason why. We don't know, right? So, like, you got to be cautious, and you got to take the media that we're able to consume. You can't take it for full value. You got to learn how to, okay, this is interesting, but maybe it's a little overblown. Maybe it's not.
Trevor, what are your thoughts on this?
A lot of the same. I mean, there's only so much that we have, and so if that's scouring as much 2019 MILB TV as possible, that's kind of what I've been doing. And I've been trying to share it with gifts and stuff, but obviously, like Chris said, that's not it. That's not what we do. That's just like one thread that I do to show the pitches and shapes and stuff. But there's so much more that goes into that, and I know Chris wasn't calling me out or anything, but just calling that out as a point. Yeah. But I also think that along the lines of what Matt said is there could be some drastic changes in rankings as the MLB games start. I think that the open mind to a lot could be different because you can't do anything with information you don't have. So what we can see, the information we have, that's all we can go off of right now, and it could all be different. So there might be some huge changes coming pretty quickly when minor league baseball starts again.
And joining us now is our good friend Ralph Lipschitz from Prospects Live. Ralph, remind everybody where you can reach on social media and plug everything that you do.
Yeah, go to prospectslive.com. That's everything I do. But at Prospect Jesus on Twitter. It's my goofy handle. But yeah, thanks guys. Sorry, was running a little late. You can blame Gray Albright. He was going really long in the pod. I think he talked for like 40 minutes about Leody Tavares, and I was just like,
That's Gray. We love Gray. It's all right. He's a great dude. A fun follow on Twitter as well at Radsball. So definitely follow him as well because he makes you crack up, especially when he jumps in a thread. So Ralph, what we're talking about right now is like how do we evaluate prospects having kind of lost a lot of information by not being able to see them in 2020. These guys have already answered, but I want you to answer.
Yeah, I think, it's obviously a unique situation because there's just different buckets sort of within this grouping, just in terms of, there's your group of prospects that have already been in the upper minors. We have a good idea of what they're doing. A lot of those guys tend to be at the alternate site. You sort of have this middle ground group of prospects, which are a lot of guys that were like 2019 draftees or maybe, 2018 draftees that maybe, potentially hurt in their draft year or subsequently after, maybe even a guy like Matt Sauer from like the Yankees where we see him for a month or two. And it's crazy because these guys suffered Tommy John surgeries at like the beginning of that season and are already back throwing, right? And they haven't even played a minor league season. So it's weird in that sense where we have guys like that where there's no catch up. And there's a lot of guys that were just on the beach that weren't at the alternate site, were, maybe getting consistent workouts just in random pickup games, indoor training facilities, what have you, whatever they might have available to them. Some of these lower minor prospects played in essentially independent leagues. There were a handful of guys that did that, but obviously the quality that they were facing isn't even probably low A or short season sort of quality within those independent leagues. And then you had all these kids, and I think this is probably where I jumped in with Matt, that we're on the complexes in the Dominican Republic, and there's essentially 2 or 3 years now of international prospects we haven't even seen, and we're going off of hearsay, which is a lot of the stuff that's published by certain publications prior to them signing, which is coming directly from Buscones, which is coming directly from agents, which is coming directly from trainers, and it's mostly bull, right? And then we have, you know, a lot of these guys where they haven't even seen high-level pitching yet. So how do we evaluate? It's tough. So we can go back, we can look at other video. I think the easiest evaluations for me are 2019 and 2020 draft guys, because I've seen some sample there. You know, we've seen Cape Cod, we've seen them hit with wood and have some success or not have some success. And we have a lot of data available to us. And I think that's the other thing is if you have connections, if you have availability to either the Major League data sharing system, something like Synergy, which allows you to get a little bit deeper on college and prep guys, you know, or just direct data from like NCAA Trackman. I think that's what's actually going to give you something tangible to measure off of, because you can actually see stuff that isn't publicly available. So I think the biggest thing, like in 2020, if you really want to give an accurate portrayal of what's going on, you had to have some connections. You had to sort of work the phones. You had to dig hard and try to get real information, because there's just so much out there right now that's just fluff, you know, or it's like repetitive stuff that's just like general terms that don't mean anything. There's a lot of that in the prospect world where we fill in the blanks with terms that don't really mean anything, you know, and then it gets repeated. So it's tough. We don't know. There's going to be so many breakouts. I mean, we just look at the draft rankings. I felt like I had a great handle on the 2021 draft class. You know, I'm relatively well connected. And I think I hear a lot of the stuff as it comes to the C list of the grapevine, right? I'm not A list or B list, but I hear some of the dope that's coming out in the back scenes. But you have a guy like, you know, Justice Thompson from UNC, who looks like he's a legitimate, like top 2-round guy that we didn't have in our top 350. Perfect game, though they knew about him because he's been on the JUCO list that Brian Sikowski puts together for a couple of years. They didn't have him in their top 250 college players. And this guy is well within the top 50, maybe even the top 25 to 30. So I think we're going to have a lot of stuff like that once the season starts and we get in, a month or so into games. There's going to be some guys that we potentially wrote off as non-prospects that pop. So I think we're going to be real busy. We're going to be, for all the time we've had off with nothing to write about and we've been twiddling our thumbs, we're going to have so much information that's just going to be like wash over us. Because I know, like, every time college baseball, especially these weekends, it's like I'm like completely overwhelmed by games for like 12 to 13 hours and trying to digest like who's doing this, who's doing that. And you can't possibly see all of it. So as a community, we're going to have to work together to not be watching the same guys.
Well, I'm glad I got you guys all on Podapolooza now, so that way in a month from now when all the games are going on, you guys won't be available, right? I'm sure I'll drag some of you on the podcast and stuff like that. But we're going to switch gears a little bit here and talk about 2021 for fantasy in terms of like redrafts leagues. You know, every year there's prospects that come up and make an impact. Sometimes we see them coming, sometimes we don't. So I want to ask each one of you, I'll start with you, Ralph, what prospect is going to make the biggest fantasy impact in 2021?
Yeah, I think the easy answer is probably like Jared Kelnick. We ranked him 1 for that reason. I think he's going to have an immediate impact potentially, but I think that there's a group there. And I think depending upon even what your league format is like, it might be someone like Ian Anderson. It might be Sixto Sanchez. If we see Mackenzie Gore and he's as good as we think he is, and he actually has the ability to make 20 plus starts this year, it could be Mackenzie Gore. Dylan Carlson's probably in that conversation as well. But I think I'm going to take the lowest hanging fruit, and I'm going to say it's going to be Randy Arozarena because he's qualified still as a as a prospect. I think I think from day one he's probably going to play. The Rays could screw around with him a little bit, but I think he has some qualities that do translate beyond the hype and everything else. I think what we saw in the playoffs was we saw the manifestation, potentially the peak will be this season, of high-rise fastball, vertical approach angles, and guys, going very flat, trying to attack the top of the zone. and essentially throw over barrels. He is a guy with an incredibly flat, level swing plane that can mash and murk high in the zone. Alex Bregman's another one, which is why I believe in the Alex Bregman bounce back this year, just from a redraft standpoint. High ball hitters are going to do well because everybody that's coming up in the minors right now has a high ball, fastball approach. And I think that those guys that have that skill set are going to be sort of these unicorns that have the ability to overcome some of their contact issues, because Randy Arozarena's contact, his plate discipline numbers aren't all that good. I mean, you look, his chase rate's low, but he's got a relatively high swing and strike rate. He swings and misses a fair amount in zone. But I think the fact that he's going to be able to just murder fastballs, and he's going to see a fair amount of high fastballs. I think he's still going to be really, really impactful. And I think it's going to be low hanging fruit, and you're not going to have to worry about the service time games probably. So I'll take the easy answer and say Randy Arozarena and leave the fun prospects for everybody else.
Yeah, I love Arozarena. I've been grabbing him in every draft that I can. I've totally bought in. I know some people don't want to buy the small sample from last year, but he showed me something that you just don't see every day, and that's his ability to recognize pitches and just crush them. And so I believe. And plus, you get the speed. I think the speed is an underrated asset of Arozarena that people don't talk about. Trevor, who's your guy?
I'm just gonna go wild and just throw a name out there. I'm going to say Logan Gilbert. And that's just because I absolutely love Logan Gilbert. I love his, all the pitches he's got, his whole arsenals. He's just a lot of fun to watch, man. And I hope that he gets a chance early. That's the only thing detracting. But I think if he can get onto the Mariners and get, some sort of role in that rotation, I really think he could make a pretty good impact. His extension is absolutely insane. And he has a feel for, I want to say, all of his pitches. I mean, I don't remember anything standing out truly that he was like, I was like, he really should try, he can't do that. So I don't know. I think Gilbert could be a really fun name to have on. I've been grabbing him a lot late in drafts in redraft just because I can, and I'm really hoping for something from Gilbert.
Matt, who's your guy?
Oh, man. A lot of the guys have already been named, but I think it's hard to argue with Sixto Sanchez and Ian Anderson. I think those are guys that are going to step right into the rotations right away for their teams. And, we saw what they could do last year. And especially with Ian Anderson with his low spin changeup, I think that's going to be a real nasty pitch where he can tunnel very well off the fastball. And the Braves are a pitching development organization. So offensively, I mean, the easy answers, Ralph took about 12 of them, so damn you. But, it's all right, man. Randy Arozarena is obviously the obvious choice, I think. You want a little off-the-radar name for 2020? Maybe it's someone like Elliot Ramos with the Giants. The number 40 man, they have a outfield that would be easy to break into. He's not going to blow the doors off by any means, but he can be an above-average contributor out there and probably left field the way that stadium's set up. I don't know if he can play center or right there. He's a bigger-bodied boy. You want a real dark, deep sleeper that's not worth drafting in fantasy, but maybe worth a fab run the last 2 months of the season. Nolan Gorman's going to be up at the end of the year. So the way the Cardinals are putting him at second base with the main group during spring, they are serious about these type of things, and we will definitely see him. He will be pushed aggressively this spring. He'll probably be in most of the lineups. They did that with Bader before he came up. They did it with Carlson before he came up. They're going to do it with Gorman. You'll see him at the end of the year. Second base thing is a real thing, and hopefully it goes well, but that's a shot in the dark for you.
All right, Eric, give me your guy.
I've been scooping up a lot of Alex Kirilloff later in drafts. I think his ADP is very reasonable. It looks like he might be in platoon with a Brent Rooker to start the year. We'll see. His Rooker looked pretty good end of last year, but I really believe in Kirilloff, and he's one of the prospects that I usually target because I think he can make a fairly easier transition because he has that plus hit tool, right? He's one of the better pure hitters in the minor leagues, and he showed that outside of the early part of 2019 when he was battling injury. And once he was fully healthy, I think he hit 320 with 5 bombs the last 80 or so plate appearances of that season, just showing that he can be that 300 type of hitter with around 25 home runs or so. and a pretty good Minnesota lineup too. And we'll see where he hits, but yeah, he's a guy I've been scooping up a lot of. And then on the pitching side of things, I love a lot of the rookie arms last year that did not excel. Guys like Nate Pearson, Spencer Howard, the Detroit boys, all those types that are going super late in drafts right now that a lot of us had ranked very similarly to Anderson and Sixto, and maybe even ahead of those two, depending on what rankings you look at. But I love Pearson. I saw him live, a couple games with Ralph, even Double A New Hampshire, and I love Pearson. I think he's gonna be a high strikeout guy. And then if he can keep his ratios in check, which I believe he can, and I think he's gonna be a great value late. And then Spencer Howard, all he has to do is beat out Matt Moore, who hasn't been both good and healthy in 5 years now. So I can see Spencer Howard getting that job, or at least early in the year taking over. And I'm still a big fan of him too. So a lot of good pitching values late this year.
Chris, give me your guy.
I mean, everybody took everybody. So I guess let's just go for like a far-reaching guy that like I would never draft, but I would watch. Just given the chance that there might be at bats there, and that would be Bobby Bradley of the Indians. Dude's going to strike out a lot, but right now he's in a first base competition with Jake Bauers. That's not really a, strong competition to really watch for us in fantasy, but like if the dude gets at bats, he's going to hit some home runs. Hopefully he can get that average high enough to, not be just a one category guy, but that's really kind of it. Everybody else has stolen all the other answers. So,
and that sometimes happens, but Bradley is a name that I was super high on for a while. And it just, I would love to see him break out and get some playing time. And you're right. Bowers is not going to stop him if he's performing. So, Bowers is obviously one of those prospects that just hasn't seemed to quite work out. All right, let's see. What prospect is most overrated in fantasy, Chris? Since everybody stole all your answers last time, I'll let you steal their answers right now.
I won't steal everybody's answer by naming off several different names. Well, maybe I will. I don't know about that. I've got all the power right now, so just look into these eyes and you'll understand that, guys. But anyway, I don't know. I'm going to give two names. One that's here, one that's not. One that's here is Ryan Mountcastle. Talk about the luckiest guy in the minor league or major leagues last year. Just go back and watch all of his film. Just watch every hit that he got. And that average is coming down. And it's really only average power. He's an average regular. And I see him getting drafted pretty high. And I'm like, oh my God, you guys haven't watched the video, you haven't seen the underlying stats. So I kind of worry about maybe we're not projecting enough of that guy having so much luck last year. And then I guess the other person would be Christian Robinson. Dude can't hit. Let's just put it that way right now. I've had reports from Instructs the last 2 years. The dude is frustrated. This is a big season for him. All that upside and stuff people bought into, and I bought into it too. I'll be honest, but eventually he's going to have to find a hit tool. So those are my two selections.
Oh man, that Robinson call out, that's scaring me. I'm highly invested in my dynasty league. So Eric, who's your guy who's most overrated?
I think Ralph might know where I'm going with this one. I'm going to go Davy Garcia of the New York Yankees. He's a guy I saw in Double A, and I think there's some value to be had here with Davy, but I wonder if the value has gotten a little too high because he's a Yankees pitching prospect, and we always talk about the Padres tax. I think there's a Yankees tax a little bit too when it comes to prospects and fantasy. And in my looks of Davy, and this goes beyond just my live looks, a lot of the video work I've studied on him, I think his fastball is fringe average. I really do. The velocity, the movement, the command, the biggest part that I have an issue with. I love, he's got a good curveball, solid changeup, but the fastball, I think, is just a problem with him. I think it's going to get hit hard at the major league level. And he's only like 5'9", which I think is actually generous. And, size isn't everything, but just look back, how many guys this size have been really good for a really long period of time? It's very few names. So I think he'll have maybe some short-term success because he's so a talented arm overall. I'm not saying he's not, but I just don't see like a long-term, like, all right, this guy's going to be really good for a really long time.
All right, Ralph, who's your guy?
I'm just trying to recover from him saying Davy Garcia's fastball movement isn't good, because it is, but and it's incredible flat approach angle. The other thing is the reason that there's a lot of short guys who have had sustainable careers is because scouts literally wouldn't sign a guy that was 5'8", 5'9" years ago. And I think we're seeing the trend going the opposite way, where a lot of these shorter pitchers have incredibly low release heights. Jack Leiter, who's going to be pitching in a few hours, is a perfect example of that. And velocity is not everything, but in terms of the guy that I think is probably most overrated, you could either be the most overrated or the most underrated player on draft boards, and it's Jason Dominguez. We don't really know. I'm uncomfortable ranking Jason Dominguez, frankly. I'm uncomfortable talking about him. I don't want to draft him in any leagues. He's fun to follow on Instagram. I love to watch him hit, taters and batting practice, but I have no idea what this guy looks like against a good cutter. I don't know what this guy looks like against a good curveball. I don't know what this guy looks like against 95, 99, whatever. I don't know what he looks like against 88, if I'm being frank. So, like, he's one of those guys you have to rank because people are like, why isn't Jason Dominguez on this list? Why are you like, they'll get mad at you about it. Like they're invested, especially if they own a fantasy prospect, And I like to say, I'm not like Keith Law. I don't hate your team. It's personal. I actually hate you. So that's the reason that I want your fantasy prospect to be bad. But I have Eric Pena's another one. Like, I have no idea. I don't know. There's no game film, Louis Rodriguez is a perfect example from the Dodgers. I heard really good things from people within the Dodgers organization about Louis Rodriguez, and James Anderson has other connects, different people within the Dodgers organization that said bad things about Louis Rodriguez. So which one is it? We honestly have no idea with these prospects, and the fact that we've had a year off, who knows? They might have gotten bad. They might actually be bad, and they might be guys that aren't even top 100 prospects, So I'm gonna throw out Jason Dominguez in particular because he's ranked so highly, and it's uncomfortable, man. I know Blessing agrees with me.
This is what I absolutely love on panels and on podcasts and in articles is people talking about when they don't know. Because there is so much in baseball just in general that we don't know. And we often feel pressured to say we know everything. We know what's going to happen. And, 2020, 2021, there's a lot we don't know, not just in the prospect game, but just in baseball in general, how things are going to happen because it's never happened before, right? And so I appreciate the honesty right there, Ralph. I really do. Trevor, give me your guy.
So, I know what has been said already on this panel, and these are very smart people who I hate to disagree with. So I'm going to go with Randy Arozarena. All that being said, it's not that I don't like Randy Arozarena. It's not that I don't think he's going to be, good. I just think right now, if you're going in drafts, you're paying he hit a lot of home runs in the playoffs tax, and from that perspective, I just can't get myself into it. Because I've also seen him in the minors go on absolute tears when he was with the Cardinals and then go ice cold before too. So there's just a lot there in his history, and with the fact that where he's getting drafted, trust me, I love Randy Arozarena. I mean, you can look up a video of him hitting an infield triple, and it's like he's just such a fun player. But where he's going, it's just, to me, I'm kind of avoiding him right now, and it has nothing to do with how I think of him as a player. It's what I think of where he's going and why he's going so high. I think I just need to see a little bit more.
Hey, that's totally fair.
I think he could. I agree with everything you said. I just said this in the podcast that we recorded. We're doing the top 50 outfielders for Razzball. And I just had this conversation with Gray in the same way. I won't draft Arozarena on any of my redraft teams, but I do think if I'm going to project out, who could potentially be the highest scoring rookie in Roto, it's probably Arozarena. But, as I think Blessing said the other day, like, I love prospects, but I like to win more. So you can separate the two.
There you go. All right. Matt, give me your guy. You have to turn yourself off mute.
Yeah, I had it and I lost it. I'm trying to go back to it. For redraft value this year, I'm not entirely sure if Tristan McKenzie can hold up the workload for the full season, unfortunately. I think we all like what he did last year in a short burst, but I mean, he made what, 5 or 6 starts, I believe. I don't have the numbers in front of me, and he already had issues maintaining and sustaining his fastball velocity during those outings, and already kind of showed noticeable wear. Understandably, he hasn't pitched in a while, so I'm a little bit down on McKenzie for this year. I still do love him long term as maybe a back end guy, which is a little disappointing for what fantasy guys might want, but I think he can still be a good ratio back end starter. And long term, I mean, yeah, Jason Dominguez is another good choice, and Luis Rodriguez is up there too. But you could kind of bank on any of these new J2 guys. Throw out any J2 guy you like, and you probably, you can make a case for being correct. So for the sake of that, I mean, looking at my list right now, Christian Hernandez for the Cubs has a lot of buzz. We don't really know what he's going to be. Your people are paying, top 2-round value in fantasy. Wilman Diaz with the Dodgers, Carlos Colmenares, Tampa Bay. Those are all, good chips to trade. There's the reason why you draft them, to be honest. I mean, their value's never. It's high now, and then they're going to kind of, ride the bell curve and come back up, and then the value is as high right now as it will be as close as when they debut. You kind of got to ride the roller coaster and figure out when to use them as trade chips, in my personal opinion. But, guys like that in the lower rung of the system are always guys that you could flip, and that's what you need to do. So from your own perspective, the guys in the lower rung, and a guy that I personally think is overvalued is Taylor Trammell. So I'll eat that one too for a redraft this year. I'm not very excited about anything that he does very well. He's a fourth outfielder, which there's a major league role in fourth outfielder, obviously. But I've never been high on Taylor Trammell. I know a couple guys out here have seen him, and you should see. I think I already know their thoughts on him, but I'm not the highest on Trammell, so I'll go for him as the overrated guy. I've been on that beating that drum for a while now, so.
All right. So what we're doing today is we are raising money for Mental Health America. So far, let's see, we have raised almost $6,900. So really, really appreciate everybody who's been donating. Continue to send in those donations. You can do that. Little ticker on the bottom right there tells you where on PayPal, justinmasonfantasy@gmail.com, or on Venmo @Justin Zallinger. Every dollar you donate will be donated to Mental Health America, and every dollar you donate gets you a ticket into the raffle of all these amazing prizes we're giving away. There's only so many prizes left, so if you're going to donate. Once we for every $1,000 that's donated, I added a TGFBI spot for next year. We've already going to give away 6. We're getting pretty close to giving away 7. The goal is to beat Pitcher List from last week. They raised a $10,300. I don't know if we're going to make it, but we're going to try and try to give away 10 spots TGFBI for next season. But we have some prizes to give away right now. Ralph is giving away something. So Ralph, why don't you tell people what it is?
I'm still on mute. So it's a Prospects Live sweatshirt of your choosing.
There you go. And so we're going to give that away right now. And it is Nick Pollock. There you go. Nick Pollock of Pitcher List, the aforementioned.
You got to throw it back.
If he wants to throw it back, he can throw it back, and I'll re-raffle it over.
He's just got to wear it. He's got to wear it on a podcast, and we got to get him like a Prospects Live hat too.
See, so there you go.
It's free. Like full
it's free advertisement.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. See, there you go.
Don't worry. I'll be bugging Nick a lot to wear that now.
See, there we go. And then we're also Derek Rhodes, who was on, I believe, yesterday. He does best ball sheets for Fantrax and for best ball 10s on NFBC. They are fantastic. We're going to give away 4 of those right now because he was nice enough to donate those. So give me one sec. I'll do the little randomizer thing again. And we are going to give it away to Chris Mayer, Matthew Poole, Michael Govier, and Keith Tonsanger. Congratulations, all of you. And I will get you in touch with Derek, and he can help you out in getting you set up. Those things are fantastic. If you're going to play best ball this league, you should go get those. Go over to his site or his Twitter and click the link and get those if you didn't win. But really, really appreciate him donating those. We've got about, 7 minutes left, 6 minutes left in this segment before we have to move on to the next one. So I want to ask you guys, let's see. I want to ask you guys your first year player draft, pick. A guy who you really like. I know we didn't have a lot of video. This is something that we're gonna. Ranks may change in a few weeks, in a few months, quite a bit. But a lot of people are doing their first year player drafts right now in their dynasty league. So Ralph, give me your favorite guy. It doesn't have to be the number one guy, but your favorite guy that you're targeting in your first year player drafts.
Yeah. There's so many. I would say just in terms of value, and where you can get him versus sort of reality is Freddie Zamora, who was drafted by the Brewers. This is a guy that I think if he had a full season or even a half season in 2020 and hadn't been injured, he might have gone, maybe a round earlier. There was a team suspension, and then he blew out his knee. And so I think like those two events sort of really pushed down his prospect stock. If you Google him enough, you'll see that. And I honestly think this is a guy fantasy wise that has a great skill set. He walks more than he strikes out. There's sort of developing power there that, is at least probably fringe, which I think still plays. And he's a plus runner that really, really, I don't know if like home to first is maybe 55, but he's very instinctual on the base pass. He's an excellent base stealer. I think he's a guy that's going to run and play in the infield, potentially play a few different positions. I think he's a future major leaguer, and I think he's going to be a fantasy relevant guy. And you can get him after 25 in your first year player draft. So I would say it's Freddie Zamora. My favorite player in the class is Max Meyer, but that's another story. But yeah, I think Freddie Zamora is just a great value. So that's one of those guys to go after. But this is a great first year player draft year.
Hey, I'm glad you said Freddie Zamora because I actually took him at the first pick of the third round in my 16-team dynasty league. So I'm glad I'm getting the feeling good. It's better than the panel that came on earlier that just crapped all over every pitcher that I've taken so far in drafts this year. Chris, why don't you give your guy? You're on mute. Let's see if I can.
We need the Jaws music.
All right. It says, well, I'll move on to Eric while Chris sees if he can unmute himself. Eric, give me your guy.
I was going to say, Chris, do you know sign language? You can start telling people your player that way. But for me, it's Austin Wells. I hate to say that as a Red Sox fan. He's a Yankee, but his profile just fits so well down the road at Yankee Stadium, where he could be a big time, plus power, potentially plus hit tool guy. He's not going to stay at catcher. So if you want him as a catcher, I think that's a low likelihood. And I'm not saying it's out of the realm possibility, but he probably moves off a catcher down the road a few years down. But he's a lefty that can, pull the ball, he can hit the ball in the air. Yankee Stadium, short right field porch. That means really good things. So I've been getting a lot of him in my first year player drafts and dynasty leagues. But I think he's going to be a guy that's going to give me headaches in real life. I think he's going to be a very good hitter for the Yankees down the road. And it probably won't take him too long to make his way up through that Yankees farm system either. So Austin Wells is my guy.
All right, Trevor, go ahead and give me your guy.
Just somebody for like deep down, if you're doing, if you have a long list of players you need for your first year player draft, a couple guys I like, Hayden Cantrell and Kobe Mayo both. Cantrell, I just always thought was super interesting. It's this hyper aggressive approach at the plate. Like, dude just loves to swing, but also he had, if I'm remembering correctly from his college, like he had pretty decent walk numbers in college. So I think he's going to be a really interesting guy moving forward. He's got some speed to him as well, and he's a guy that I definitely have been targeting. There's another guy who I wasn't able to get in one of my first year player drafts. I don't know who got him, but it made me sad in Ray Butler's league, and that was Kobe Mayo. And he's just a guy. I mean, I just love everything about his swing. Obviously, he's a prep bat, and so there's built-in risk there. But Kobe Mayo is a guy that I like a lot.
All right, Chris, have you been able to unmute your microphone?
Sorry about that. My whole computer froze up. I couldn't even see
No worries.
Yeah, I heard you, but I couldn't see you. I was actually going to go with the same guy Eric went with, Wells, but I'm going to talk about him as a catcher. He's going to be a catcher. They wouldn't have drafted the guy if he wasn't going to be a catcher. Also, if you look into the player development of the Yankees, they have like the top catching coach out there. So I'm going to give them the edge. They drafted the guy as a catcher. I believe he's going to be a catcher.
All right. Matt, go ahead and finish off this segment. The guy that in first-year player drafts that you are excited to draft. You've muted yourself, buddy.
This question is breaking the panel.
It is
breaking everything.
Good? Are we good? Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good?
You're good.
All right. Bryce Jarvis is my guy. I like high floor, four pitch guy, good command, good control, projectable frame, pitching factory in Arizona. I'm a big fan. There's a lot of college pitchers you can get real late in this draft. I think if you're willing to spend a third-round pick, you can walk away with Jarvis, Tanner Burns, Mauburn. Same situation. Cleveland's a pitching factory, and Burns move pretty quickly there. So, yeah, give me either of those two arms, and I'll be pretty happy.
All right, guys. Unfortunately, the time is over for this segment. I really appreciate you all coming on. Make sure you're following all these guys on Twitter and asking prospect questions because, like they said, things are going to change as they get more information, and they're going to be working hard to give it to you guys in the form of podcasts, articles, lists, all on the sites and podcasts that they work for and work at. So really, really appreciate you guys taking out the time. I'm going to unceremoniously remove you from this and move on to the next crew because we have a good one coming up. And let's see. And Ralph came in last. He leaves last. There we go. Joining us now are some great people in the industry. We have Robbie. Welcome to the show.
Can't hear you. He's busy ice fishing, it looks like.
Robbie, you're on mute. All right, I'm going to move on to Andrew Dewhurst. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Hey, Justin. You said good. I thought you meant average. You told me this was about average. I'm here to bring average.
It's okay. Remind everybody where you can reach on social media and then plug all your work.
You can find me on Twitter at Andrew K. Dewhurst. You can occasionally find me doing things at the illustrious Friends with Fantasy Benefits.com. You can find hockey work at Fantasy Alarm, fantasyalarm.com. You can find DFS baseball at fantasydfsexperts.com.
All right. Joining us as well as Adam Howe. Adam, welcome to the show.
Justin, thanks for having me back. We just talked the other day.
I know. I feel like I just had a conversation with you because I did. Your guys' podcast On the Wire, me and my wife were on, and it was released today. So definitely go listen to that, mostly because my wife was on and she's more entertaining than I am. But Adam, remind everybody where you can reach on social media and plug everything you do.
Sure, you can find me at 80 grade, all spelled out, and then follow the pod on the Wire Pod. And then you find me over at Pitcher List, whether it's in the Pitcher List Discord or writing on the site. I write a Need for Speed article weekly during the season looking for stolen bases off the wire. And I work on Rick Graham's bullpen team as well, looking at bullpen situations daily.
All right. Robbie, can you take yourself off mute? All right. What I'm going to do, Robbie, is I'm just going to kick you, and then you come back, okay? So that way we can actually hear you. Dun, dun, dun. All right. Also joining us is Derek Carty. Derek, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Remind everybody where you can be reached and what you do in the industry.
Yeah, you can find me at Derek Hardy on Twitter. I think I'm probably most known for the bat projection system. You can find the season-long projections over at Fangraphs and EV Analytics, DFS version and in-season weekly projections and stuff like that at Roto-Grinders, and sports betting at EV Analytics.
All right, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you, my friend. Joining us as well is Nicholas. Nicholas, welcome to the show.
Why, hello. Thanks for having me.
It's always great to see you, buddy. Remind everybody where you can reach on social media and plug everything you do.
Yeah, so you can find me at Not Burt Reynolds on Twitter. It's NT_Burt Reynolds, but I have it on good authority. If you just search Not Burt Reynolds, I'm probably going to come up. And then I do my work at rotoballer.com. Write a variety of baseball analysis for different fantasy subjects. I do some stuff behind the scenes, and that's about it.
All right, and what we're going to be talking about today is hitting sleepers. I asked each of you guys to put together a list of 3 sleepers so we can talk about them, which is going to be better than the bus episode we did earlier today where everybody just crapped all over the pitchers I like this year. So hopefully I'll feel some good news and get some good information. But what we're going to do actually is something just a tad bit different. Is I really have to use the restroom. I've been sitting here for way too many hours in a row. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw it out to Andrew. I'm going to let him do his. Don't wait for me. I'll be right back. Then Adam go, then Derek, then Nicholas, and then I'll hopefully be back way before the end of that first round, okay? Andrew, hit it off with your first sleeper.
All right. My first sleeper, looking at Garrett Cooper, heading out past the 350 mark in the ADP range. He's somebody who underperformed his X slug and his X average, although we're not expecting too much probably from the average. But he's a guy who had an expected slugging over 500 last year. So at that value, although he looks to be a platoon player right now, it's a long season. He could find time in the outfield. He could. We've seen Jesus Aguilar bomb out in the past, so. Definitely a player you could look at as a deep sleeper, get some value, could get some home runs. I mean, we'll see what happens there, but gotta like anybody who's got an X slug well over 500, and he's still with an underperformance. So that's my first one. I guess I will move this over to Adam. You're on my right.
All right, that's how you turn it off mute. All right, good. All right, I didn't go as deep on my first guy. The guy I just picked up in a draft earlier today, I like a lot, and he's going in about the 9th round of 15-teamer. It's Marcus Semien. What I think what everybody's forgetting, I can't believe a lot of people would actually be forgetting this, but is that he's going in as a shortstop. He's going to get second base eligibility. That dual eligibility, even though it's still just middle infield, really makes him a lot more appealing than I think a lot of people are looking at him as strictly a shortstop. I jokingly said on the pod with Justin, did with him on Friday and on Twitter, that I'm just going to make all my points based on Derek's projections anyway. So the bad X, his projection of 27 home runs, 92 runs, 83 RBIs, and double-digit stolen bases really is appealing that late in the round at the second base position. And I think you can really push him up. I like to compare him directly to another second baseman who's moving positions, going in the 5th round, going 4 rounds earlier, Keston Hiura, and their projections are almost neck and neck. And to get a guy at the same position at second base 5 rounds later, I think is definitely worth pushing up a little bit higher than he's going right now. All right, who do I want to move on to? I guess I'll go right down to Derek since he's below me on the screen.
Yes, my first guy is Josh Bell. Josh Bell's a guy that you can get outside the top 10 rounds right now, and I just don't know why he's not a guy people are more excited about. Coming into 2020, I feel like people loved him because he's coming off a fantastic 2019 season. And he kind of had a down year, obviously, in 2020, but small sample sizes, 2020 was weird, the whole deal. I don't think we want to overreact to that. This was a guy who in 2019 had a 90th percentile xWOBA, 89th percentile barrel rate, 96th percentile exit velocity, 96th percentile max exit velocity, 90th percentile exit velocity on fly balls. Everything was fantastic for him. And now he's moving to such a better team environment. He's getting out of PNC Park, which is just a killer for power. He's going into Nationals Park, which is a sneaky good power park to begin with, or hitter's park rather to begin with. Much better lineup around him for RBIs and runs. He's got a good schedule with interleague play in the AL East and all of their hitters parks. This is a guy that I think people are just kind of, I don't know, like people love the things that are like new and shiny, and he's not even that far removed from being new and shiny, and he's just being overlooked, and I don't get it.
I'm actually right there with you on Josh Bell, and I'm actually glad I'm not drafting against you in NL Tout this year, having been moved to the mixed league. So that way, maybe I don't have to worry about getting bid up too much on him. I think he is a guy that people are just digging too much into the small sample that was 2020, which was crazy for everyone. And so, yeah, I mean, will he be as good as he was in 2019? Maybe not, but I think it's going to be closer to that than it was what he showed in 2020, especially in the new park, and the team around him is going to be so much better than it was in Pittsburgh. Nicholas, who's your first guy?
Yeah, so all my guys are old and boring, and I'm not. You can get classified sleepers at any point in the draft. I'm just looking for people that return value, but for this, I went with some deeper guys. So I'm going to start with old man Joey Votto. Going at an ADP pass 350, and his value last year got completely sucked out by a 226 batting average, but his XBA was 254. It was 261 last year. I'm not I'm not looking for or stressed out too much about more than a 250 batting average from him. I think one thing that got overlooked with him was, small sample and whatnot, is that he hit more home runs than he has for a few years. After hitting, I think combined like 25 in 2018, 2019, hits 11 in the short season. And it wasn't, you can kind of excuse that, short sample, he plays in a bandbox. But, if you parse into his exit velocities, there were some positive things. And, even starting before that is he pulled the ball like he never has before. And once again, small sample stuff. But with Joey Votto, I kind of get like, if he is making a change, like he had a career high pull rate, going by StatCast's pull percent, he was at 40.6%, up from 35.8 was his high before that. Go by Fangraphs pull percent, 46.2%, up from 39% high. And it was like Joey Votto, known tinker. If he is suddenly pulling the ball more than he ever has before, I feel like it was a purposeful change. Whether or not it's a positive change, that's another question. But that's why I kind of don't think this is a small sample thing. But more importantly, like the exit velocities, and you look at his hard hit rate, which I talk a lot about how it's not that instructive or informative, and it dropped from 38% to 35%. You're like, okay, old man, 37-year-old, slowing down. His average exit velocity on fly balls was essentially the same as it has been, but barrel rate was up and his highest since 2017. His max exit velocity was a career high of 113, up 3.7 miles per hour from the previous year. And I'm preaching to the choir, I know, for Mr. Carty on parsing these other exit velocities, but looking at his percentage of balls hit in the air at over 100 miles per hour, it went from 22% to 19% to 20% in 2019, all the way up to 31% in 2020. Moving from the 20th percentile to the 54th percentile. Same thing on average exit velocity of his hardest hit top 5% of balls, up over 2 miles per hour, career high. Like you have to at least pay, even a small sample. Like I'm going to pay attention to those things, combined with the fact that he's pulling the ball. And even though I'm not even looking for like just bonkers power out of Votto. I have him projected for 22 home runs, 85 runs, 77 RBI, and a 258 average. And I may be a little bullish on power, but not really. I know that from I made sure to look at, because I knew no one would care about my projections. So I made sure and pick guys today that mine weren't crazy outliers comparatively speaking. And Votto's like, that's a kind of middle of the road projection. And that's my other thing is just I do value-based drafting. Like I'm going to turn a bunch of stats into $1 number that I can put everybody in a vacuum occasionally when I need to compare. And I think people really underestimate that boring line that I just told you gives him really high value. Like that would be a really good line. That would be, a back end starter at first base. And I'll take that at a ridiculous ADP instead of, give me Votto 200 picks later, over 200 picks later than Eric Hosmer, who's going to put up very similar stats and still can't hit left-handers. I'll take him over like a guy I don't like, Matt Olson, who you compare Votto's line, Votto, what I just projected, and what Olson is kind of projected to being like, oh, obviously Olson is way better, 15 plus more home runs, more RBIs. Votto's probably got him a little bit on runs, but it's like a 25-point batting average difference. And, I work a lot in values and calculating values and, seeing where value comes from in categories. And that big of a difference when you expect Votto to get more plate appearances as well, like that low batting average by guys like Olson. Like I know maybe you want more power from him, but that is a big time value drain and brings them a lot closer. And when you're talking about guys that are 200 spots apart and 200, 300 spots in Olson's case, like those are guys I'm looking to get. Like I don't need Votto to be a unicorn. I just need him to, return above replacement value, more than that. But just it's a free pick, and if he comes out and he's back to hitting, on a 10 home run pace for the year, then I drop him because he was basically free in the draft.
And I think that is the main point, right? Like you're not having to invest any draft capital really into Joey Votto right now because people aren't believing the small sample in 2020 that he did kind of regain some of that power swing. So not a bad pick. I like it. What we're doing today, we're raising money for Mental Health America. We did have someone ask, did I miss the bat giveaway? No, you didn't. It's coming up here in about 15 minutes. I'm going to donate, or I'm going to raffle out that prize that Derek donated, and I'll give him a moment to talk about that when we get kind of close there. And then let's see. So let's move into our second round of sleepers. Nick, go ahead and give me your second one.
No, give me my second one. All right. So I am going, once again, staying as my camera's all jacked up. I am once again staying way deep in things, and I'm going to Luis Arias from Minnesota. It's like a ridiculous ADP. I think he's over well over 400 ADP. And the first thing you have to address is like playing time. I get that people are like, after they sign Simmons, I get that people are kind of down on playing time. You go to roster resource. It says, it has him batting second, but also has him in a platoon with him and Polanco. Okay. Like I'm of the opinion that out of that, like Simmons, Polanco, Urias trilogy, that I'm not worried about Urias's playing time. Like the glove's good. I'll talk about the hit tool in a second, but I think that Polanco will end up being the one shorted on playing time a little bit there. But at the same time, it's like, that's my question about him. And it's at a ridiculous ADP. So, if he's in a strict platoon and, is only playing a couple times a week, then whatever, drop him. But the thing about Urias is his hit tool is phenomenal. Like he's going to bat 300. Like there's few things in the majors that I'm least concerned about is that Urias will bat 300. Batted like 340 something last year, like 320 the year before. You look at his minor league stats, it's just absurd averages. I think his one time he batted under 300 was like 290 something at his first crack at AA at like age 20. And then he came back to AA the next year and batted like 350. Like the dude hits. And I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, he does kind of mid-range on, average to below average on runs, RBI. Like he's not giving you a bunch of stolen bases, but that average is so overwhelming. Going back again to values, and his I have him I'm bullish on him once again. I have him probably at the top end of playing time at 550 plate appearances. Like that's not crazy off from other people, but it's higher. And I have him at a 312 average. That's my highest projected average. I'm not the highest projection on average. I know most people in the early 300s, and I'm at near the highest, but not quite. And just looking at the values and seeing just how overweighted, like if Luis Urias gets 550 plate appearances and bats 310 or whatever, like it's really going, because he's not a sink in the other categories. Like, yeah, he's going to give you a handful of home runs. Like the counting stat, like Minnesota's lineup is good up and down. There's going to be a lot of people on base. There's a lot of people to knock him in. Like, I don't think those numbers are going to be outrageous, but I think they're going to be average to, a little above average. And when you combine that with, the most batting average value that, you're going to get in fantasy, like that's gravy for me, especially at just an absurd ADP. I mean, he was like 220 last year, and he's up 400. I think he's 477 when I look today. And for that kind of like with like cheap guys, and I'm like guys like that I'm looking to pop, like I'm hoping to pop. Like I know that like the basement of his value, if given the playing time, like if he doesn't get playing time, I'm going to drop him, like he said. But given the playing time, I know his average is going to be good enough that he's not going to be a negative value on my team overall. So really all I need is like, if that's my floor, like I know he's not going to screw me, then I just need like what if Polanco keeps dropping off and it's Urias batting second for a majority of the at bats. Or I mean, we're talking about Minnesota that includes Josh Donaldson, Miguel Sano, and Byron Buxton. Like 2 out of 3 are getting hurt this year. I think we know this. Like I'm playing time is just not like it's keeping my ceiling on him lower, just because I'm not going to count on a lot of crazy amount of playing appearances. But I don't know. I think the best player is going to get the most at bats in that situation. So yeah, I'll have a lot of Urias.
All right. Robbie got back. We got it.
Victory.
Yes. Robbie, remind everybody where you can reach on social media, and then plug everything that you do, and then give us your first sleeper.
Sure. So first, my apologies. Technology, not my friend. You can find me at Dingers Pod. That's the podcast I do with co-host Ty Childs, or at Tourney Boss. Find myself at Robbie Baseball 1. As well, I launched a website last week, robbiebaseball.com. So lots of good free information, list rankings. You had first year player draft talk the last half hour or last 45. I've got a 19 source ADP that I did from different rankers, as well as some money dynasty league drafts, which is what I really focus on, is dynasty league. But sleepers, fellas, I'm just going to give you the hard fact that Nick Madrigal is a sleeper, because his ADP is post 191 when I checked last night. And I even said on Twitter, hey, what's a sleeper, definition of a sleeper? Because I want to make sure I could include him. On Fantasy Pros, it's north of 211. Projections are different on him. I've got my own. I see less at bats than Derek you've got with Bad X. I see 525 kind of as a max for him because he doesn't walk. So it's not plate appearances and at bats. So I just see it a little that's similar. But anyway, even with only 2 dingers for him, I can still see 80 runs coming his way. LaRussa, I believe, is going to go old school management with this. If he gets on with 2 outs, he's going to be told to steal a base, because they'd rather have Tim Anderson come on at the start of a new inning with no outs than have Madrigal sitting on first, getting a ground out or something like that with Anderson to then end an inning and end a threat. And if he's got guys like Moncada and Robert that are on base that are on base ahead of him, he's going to be told get that ball in play, which is exactly what he does. So I can see the RBIs still sucking, but I can see him getting 65. And again, I really see the stolen bases being closer to 30 than closer to 20 for him, and then safely hitting in the 300 range with kind of a cap at 305. So I love Madrigal. And in Dynasty, the more categories you get into, the better his value, because he's not striking out, which, you know, if you want to go with the big bopper guys, especially at second with Albies, you got a ton of strikeouts to deal with. And then you've got the upside of being in such a dominant lineup today. Now, we've seen other guys in dominant lineups that end up doing nothing. I'm just going to go ahead and say this is somebody I'm just believing is going to get it done. From baseball terms, if I'm managing and I've got a fast guy coming up and one out and he gets on base, I'm going to say, okay, if the opportunity's there, take that bag. You know, we want the run. We want you on second, not on first when Anderson's up. We want you, you know, on second when Eaton's up. And spreading Eaton and Magical out, I think, is also going to work well. And I could, oh my God, I would love to see him flop to 2 or 1 in that lineup. But even at 9, I think he's sleeper worthy. So that's my guy.
There you go. Derek, go ahead and give me your sleeper, in spite of the fact that Doug Dennis apparently is watching and taking notes, apparently.
Yeah, he's writing them all down. I feel like I should. All my guys are like National League guys. I think I need to pick some AL ones. But Avisail Garcia is a guy that I think is going overlooked this year. You know, he's going around the same spot that Votto is in drafts, and I feel like he's kind of for a similar reason as Votto. Like, he doesn't have to set the world on fire, but he's going too low for what his most likely outcome is. And I do think there's upside, you know, beyond that. Like, this is a guy who, you know, a couple of years ago, people were excited about. Like, the tools are there, the power is there, the pedigree and the upside is there. And, you know, he had a down 2020, and I think people are overreacting to it for a lot of guys like this. You know, you look at what he was doing in 2018, 2019, his barrel rates were, you know, 80th percentile, 85th percentile. His exit velocities, you know, were all 80th, 90th percentile kind of across the board, no matter how you sliced it up. Even last year, you know, he had a down year, but his max exit velocity was still 88th percentile. His percentage of balls that he hit between 23 degrees and 34 degrees launch angles, which is like a really strong angle for home runs, it was a career high, 66th percentile. So, like, this is a guy that still has that power, is playing in a good park for power. Yeah, the Brewers lineup isn't amazing, but the top 5 should be pretty good, and Avisail should be cemented in that top 5 because there's no one else that should be doing that. Like, this is a guy that last year, he led off for them a bunch of times. He hit cleanup a bunch for them. He should be somewhere in that top 5 pretty much every day this year. There's no Ryan Braun. Like, there's really no threats to his playing time that I see. Derek Fisher is the 4th outfielder at this point. You know, he's not amazing. He's not going to go out and, you know, win you a league. But for where he's being drafted, I think there's plenty of value on guys like this because people want to chase the younger, hotter, you know, like massive upside guys. But, you know, Avisail's mean outcome is going to be good for where he's being drafted. And I think there's upside beyond that people are overlooking because he's gotten a little bit older and he's a little more boring than, you know, the kind of guys that people like to chase.
And we talked about Avisail Garcia earlier today with Jason Collette because it was his bold prediction was he was going to be a top 50 outfielder this year. And I'm on board. I agree with you. I think people are, whether it's his former prospect pedigree that he never panned out to, or whether the fact that, you know, he showed up out of shape during after quarantining last year, like, I think people are underrating what he can deliver to a fantasy team. And not every player on your fantasy team needs to, like, knock it out of the park, right? You want to get production at every spot, and he's one of those guys. He's going so late, you're going to get production from him that exceeds what you paid for him on draft day. So I like that call a lot. Adam, tell me your next sleeper.
There we go. So I didn't go as deep as these guys. I'm right for the next 2 guys. I kind of live in the same area, right around the current ADP of around 200. It's an area I like to fill my outfield in because I just think there's a lot more production there than a lot of people are, at least the ADP would suggest. And the guy I'm targeting right there, and a lot of this has to do with the fact that I've had him on my dynasty team for the last couple of years. I'm really just kind of willing this into reality. That's Andrew McCutchen leading off for the Phillies. Hopefully the first time he can actually go an entire full season leading off for that Phillies offense, you know, in front of Harper, Realmuto, and what have you. He's I was worried last year that he wouldn't run after the injury he had in 2019, but he still did. Even in the shortened season, he put up, an extra 4 stolen bases. So I think that at that late round, he can still get double-digit steals to an extent. Leading off for the Phillies, I heard a lot of people joking before, he could hit 100, he could score 100 runs at the top of that lineup if he can stay up there the entire season. You look at his stat page, it's still very red, at the very least pink. So he's still going strong even at the age 34. And I think that, even though he's not going to hit that ceiling of a high batting average that he did when he was with Pittsburgh, his still expected batting average, last year was still 277 in the 78th percentile. He's got a 78th percentile expected slugging. The dude can still hit and he can still play, and he's still going to play pretty much every day, even at that age. I really like him where he's going, and I have no problem pushing him up a round or two.
All right, Andrew, give me your second one.
There's the mute button. I'm gonna be so. This one's kind of what I've been hanging out with for years now. Victor Reyes, sitting around that 200 mark. Cheap steals, cheap average. Everyone hates the Detroit Tigers. Why not? Right? They're gonna score 8 runs a week, but he hits the ball hard. He's 62nd percentile in the hard hit rate. Slug's not great. He's not going to hit you home runs. If you're lucky, you might hit 10. But if you can get 20 steals out of him, and you can get a batting average in that 280 to 310 range, that's found money in your outfield, right? Like everyone talks about steals are at a premium, right? I think we understand that. Maybe there's some reason to be a little bit maybe pessimistic about that. Maybe we see steals come back as home runs go down. But I think that's a solid place to look. Detroit's Detroit. We don't know what's going on there. They don't know what's going on there. He might, there is some risk at 200 that maybe he doesn't play as much as you'd like, but it's at that point in time, you're going to be okay with whatever it is you get. Another guy, you're going to know within probably 2-3 weeks. They've got no reason not to play him. It's not as if they're it's not as if Torkelson's coming in and just filling that spot right away. So should be some fill in some of those 2 hardest spots to fill after or right around the pick 200.
All right, Robbie, give me your second guy.
So my second guy, same lineup. So let's say Reyes gets 8 runs a week. Candelario can get 8 RBIs. I think that's a good compromise. We'll go with that. So yeah, Jamar's north of 3. Where is he here? 245 with NFBC, 270 Fantasy Pros. So I align really closely with Derek and the Bad X projection. 590 plate appearances, 20 dingers. I can see that going up a little bit if he is getting regular bats when it warms up in Detroit. It can be cold in April. I'm not too far. I'm right outside a large snowbank at my house here right now. So here in the Great White North, it's melting. But in Detroit, it's still going to be cold and windy for a while. So 70 RBIs, because like Andrew said, Detroit's not great. 70 runs also possible. Chipping a couple stolen bases, awesome. Love all that. And switch hitter on a team that's not trying to win. So this is somebody that everyone said he's going to be this, he's going to be that, and then he wasn't. And then there was that little sample last year, and like everybody talks about, you have to pick which ones you like and which ones you don't. So I like Jamar's sample. That's dude number 2 for me.
All right. What we're doing today is we are raising money for Mental Health America. Every dollar you donate, either to my PayPal, justinmasonfantasy@gmail.com, or at Venmo at Justin Salinger, gets you entered into a raffle. And we're going to give away one of those raffle prizes right now. Derek, talk about what you're donating, because I think it's awesome. I love the bat.
Yeah, so I'm giving away a full season subscription to the bat over at Roto Grinders. Predominantly for DFS players. It gives projections for every single player every single day based on the matchups that day. It takes into account who the pitcher is, the bullpen, who the umpire is that day, what ballpark they're playing in, the platoon splits, weather, the exact defensive alignment, catcher pitch framing, like everything that possibly could matter. It's basically trying to account for. So it helps you build your DFS lineups, plugs into like a lineup optimizer thing. if you do season long, it has some tools for that as well. Like it gives projections for tomorrow. So like if you're trying to stream players, you can look at, what pitches are going tomorrow. You can get their projection. It gives week ahead projections. So you can, set your fab bids, set your lineups in NFBC and that sort of thing. So I'm giving a free subscription away for that for, I don't know, lucky winner.
The lucky winner is Ryan Bloomfield, a good guy in the industry. He may do what other people
winning everything.
Yeah, he wins leagues. He wins the bat. He may end up re-gifting it. If that happens, I will give it away to someone else. Otherwise, he needs some DFS help, right? He's going up against me in a few leagues. He could use some help to beat me this year. So we love Ryan. Congratulations to him. We're also giving away right now the Dynasty Guru list for you guys and gals who play Dynasty. So I'll redo my little randomizer here. And Kyle Edwards, you are the winner of that, and I will hook you up with Bob Osgood, who was nice enough to donate that as well. We really appreciate everybody who's donating prizes, everybody who's donating money. Somebody in the chat's asking how many people are in the raffle right now. Well, it's how many people or how much money we've raised. And so right now we have just crossed the $7,000 mark for the weekend, $7,000.98. So thank you, everybody. That means there's 7,000 entries, which means if you want a better chance to win, you got to keep donating so you have more opportunities. We're going to continue giving away stuff all throughout the day. Day's starting to come to a close here pretty quick. But if people continue to donate after, I'll still give away TGFBI entries for every time we cross $1,000 threshold. So we're giving away 7 entries already this year. If we cross more than that after Podapolooza is over, I'll add more entries. And who knows? I've been getting people texting me and messaging me in the industry saying, "Hey, I want to give something away." If people decide to give something away after Podapolooza, all you who donated will be put into those raffles that could continue to happen after Podapolooza ends. But right now, if you want to get in for some of these prizes that are still available, do it. Keep entering. So, all right. We're going to finish up our last round of sleepers. But before we do, I want to give you guys a chance to promote yourself one more time and let people know where you can be reached on social media. So that way we don't run out of time. Derek, remind everybody what you do and where people can reach you.
Yeah, at Derek Hardy on Twitter. I mostly do projections. You can find the bat at Fangraphs for season long, at Roto Grinders for DFS, and at EV Analytics for sports betting.
There you go. Adam, where can you be reaching? What do you do?
There it is. You can find me over at pitcherlist.com and then listen to me with my co-host Kevin Hastings, who won TGFBI last year on our pod, On the Wire Pod, or that's on Twitter. Just find On the Wire pretty much anywhere you find your podcast. We'll be focusing on in-season fab moves on Sundays. It goes out on Sundays, so you can listen to that and get advice prior to your bids rather than after your bids, which doesn't really do you any good. So, yeah, that's about it.
All right. Nicholas, remind people where you can be reached and what you do.
So you can find me on Twitter at NotBurtReynolds. I write at rotorballer.com as well as host a podcast, WPC Plus, with Pierre Camus, who is going to be on Podapolooza later. But yeah, I cover a lot of, this offseason. I got a number of articles on projecting power with different extra velocity thresholds, and you'll see a lot of point league work. I do a lot of that, but never fear, even if you don't play points, you'll find in my articles that it's point specific talk, but it's also just a lot of mini deep dives on players outside of points because I just can't help myself.
Hey, and I don't think points leagues are talked enough about in the industry because they're so hard to give good advice for. So people, if you play, and lots of people play in points league, it's the most popular format. So definitely go
don't
follow
let me get a soapbox on this. I will get on one very, very quickly.
We don't have the time. We don't have the time. Robbie, remind people where you can reach on social media and then plug your work.
Yeah, absolutely. So at Dinger's Podcast is what we do, Dynasty. We do talk about points because we know it's important and we know people play it. And point per game average is a thing. And Randall Grichuk is a good baseball player in points leagues. You can also find my work at robbiebaseball.com And yeah, we're giving away all the information we can. We want to help everybody out there. And yeah, thanks again for having me. This is excellent, Justin.
Of course. Andrew, remind people where you can reach and what you do.
All right, you can find first of all on Twitter at Andrew K. Dewhurst, DEWHIRST. You can find baseball DFS work at fantasydfsexperts.com. You can find betting at Wager Alarm. You can find all the rest of my hockey stuff at Fantasy Alarm. Both of those end with .com, in case you didn't know. Maybe, I don't know.
There you go. All right, we're going to finish out our last round of keepers. We only have about 6.5 minutes left, so we're going to have to keep it a little bit snappy. Derek, go ahead and fire off your last keepers. That way Doug knows who to bid you up at labor.
Nope, I'm calling an audible AL guy. We're going with Dan Jansen at catcher. I feel like he's just getting overlooked because people think Alejandro Kirk is like going to take the job maybe or something, and Kirk is the better hitter. Like, he's so good. But Danny Jansen is still a well above average hitting catcher, playing in, a great division for Parks, upgrade now with the Jays playing in Dunedin for part of the year. He's just a good hitter in probably the best offense in the American League at catcher, and he's going like outside the top 20 catchers in drafts, and that's just too low based on, playing time risk, which is real, but there's plenty of value and plenty of upside for where he's going.
All right, Adam, who's your last guy?
Well, first and foremost, I just want to make sure everybody's aware it's pronounced Dunedin. You can see. It's kind of important. No, I'm just kidding.
I've never heard it said aloud, so now I
know. My last guy, I'm going with, again, in that 200 range, Kyle Schwarber, in the same realm of Josh Bell, going into that new lineup with the Nationals, hitting right in the heart of it, being able to put up, 30, 40 home runs with that team in that lineup. And I mean, the guy just crushes the ball. He still continues to crush the ball every year. Hard hit rate, 86 percentile last year. Exit velocity, 95 percentile. He's going to be able to do, I think he's going to be able to do really good things there. And I think he's still going to play every day in the outfield, even when they don't have the DH. I know Justin thinks we're going to see the DH even on such short notice. But if they do, miracle, like he's going to see time at that position as well. I think that's a guy worth kicking up a round or two right around that time.
All right, and I'm taking notes on you, Adam, because we're in a draft together right now. You're on the clock, so go ahead and make your pick, and then I'll snipe you later. Andrew, remind people, give me your last sleeper.
I'm going real deep on this one. I'm going with Ryan O'Hearn. The Royals decided to go fetch the ghost of Carlos Santana so they can hear Black Magic Woman each and every day. Put him in at first base. O'Hearn's still got great power. He's the type of player that could be a difference maker. Another guy who greatly underperformed his expected slug last year. And he's 150,000% free. His ADP is over like 750, so he's not even getting drafted in any league. But keep an eye on waivers. You don't have to worry about drafting on him. His first 2 weeks, he hits 4 home runs. Fab magic.
There you go. All right, Robbie, give me your last guy.
All right, last one. I'm going to go back with the boys and blues to the Blue Jays. So Rowdy Tellez, who I think is leading all of Major League Baseball in spring training home runs right now. He hit a dinger today, but, ADP north of 260, 500 at bats this year, can easily see 25 dingers, 75 runs, 100 RBIs, and an average of 275. I mean, Tellez has been through the ringer, lost his mom, I think, in 18, 19, right after he got his call up. He's had to reset himself. He's been called up, sent down, not good enough. They block him at first. He finds a way. But with the robot manager in Toronto right now, they're just going to play him. I don't think he's going to be 8th. There's going to be a ton of guys on base when he's up, so he's going to get to drive him in. And he smacks the snot out of the ball. And when the Jays were rolling last year, Rowdy was in the heart of that lineup, and it's going to happen again. So, Tellez.
All right. Nicholas, give me your last guy. You got about a minute and a half.
All right. Well, Robbie took Jaimar Candelario from me, so I'll pivot to someone deeper. But that's actually fine because we're in the same TGFBI league. So now I know someone else is going to be on him too. So I'm going really deep with Jose Iglesias, who his ADP is so high that it doesn't matter. Traded from Baltimore to the Angels. He had a ridiculous year in a 40 game sample, /373, 406 556. Like, he's not going to do that again. But he is going to play every day. He is, he's their Anderson Simmons replacement. He's going to bat in the bottom of the order, but I know he's going to play every day. And like I keep talking about, like, I'll take those. I know I'm getting the at-bats, and I may be getting a bunch of, average to below average production. I'll take his high batting average and just a flyer. Like, he no draft costs. So if he's terrible, then I'll just dump him.
All right. Hey, thank you guys so much for joining me. It's really been a pleasure. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys, everyone who's been watching, for donating money for Mental Health America. We are switching feeds again, so we have to do this a few times because, unfortunately, Twitter does not let us live stream for longer than 4 hours at a time. So I've got to break it up so that way the people on Twitter can see it. If you're watching it on Twitter or on YouTube, on Twitch, on Facebook, this feed's going to end. A new one is going to pop up as soon as I jump off. So make sure you continue to follow along. Make sure you continue to donate. We've raised $7,000 so far. I want to keep going. Want to beat those guys over at Pitcher List who did such a great job with PitchCon and raised $10,300. Still hoping. We got a little bit of time left, but we can catch them. And then if we do, Brockness Monster will shave his head. Apparently, I'm supposed to shave mine. I don't know what that would accomplish, but that's okay. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I'm going to end this broadcast and then boot you all out, and we'll move on to the next one. So make sure you grab onto that news tree and start here in a minute.